Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer. It's late at night when we're doing this, but that's okay. We're still here. A little bit of travel had to move the schedule around, but fortunately, our wonderful guest was more than willing to go with.
Uh-oh.
My own beautiful assistant, Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hello, friends. Hopefully, I'm not going to freeze like Vince did.
Sorry, I apologize if I froze. Also joining us, yes, it's Mr. Lord Tremendous. How you doing, LT?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Just got 2 more games in. I'm all hopped up on caffeine. Let's do this.
Yes, that's what I like to hear. As I mentioned right before we went live, I've been up since 5 in the morning. I've been on 2 different planes today. I've spent hours in airports. Let's do it. I'm ready to rock. Like, this is the best possible time. I'm
Tom,
good.
this is it. This is the day we get to watch Vince snap on national YouTube. We could do it, Tom. We could do it.
We're taking bets in the comments
as to when I go crazy.
Yes.
Oh,
at the minute marker.
Perfect.
So let's start with some news. So Tommy, what do we got as far as news?
Well, on one hand, not a whole lot, and on the other hand, some think the world is ending. Okay, so in the world of Warhammer,
well, AOS specifically is what you mean, but that's okay.
Yes,
yeah,
that is correct. In the world of AOS, where did my news there go? Okay, only a couple things leaked out this week. We've seen that the hero basing kit. So previously they had released some molded base, molded bases of different sizes. GW did, and now they have like a basing kit, which is like 11 bases with a bunch of junk on it.
Love it.
So literally, it's like GW is watching the show and taking notes from Vince's models.
Yep, exactly. It's just ruined castles and giant stairs. And by the way, on a big enough square base, you could easily just put that round right on there, put some mold around it, like put some mud around it. Boom, you're good to go. Those are square base ready. That's all I'm saying. You take that 40 mil round, drop it right onto a 50. You got beautiful scenery on your base. More columns and stairs and garbage. I'm all about it. Bring your terrain with you on your bases. That's what I say.
And those that are going to be joining us at a Holy Havoc in a week and a half will see what we're talking about as Vince brings an additional battlefield with him.
That's correct.
So Hearn's battlefield has nothing on Vince's bases.
That's correct. Double the amount of terrain on the table. That's my goal with my army.
So other news that is dropping, the Mage Wraith Throne and the Balewind Vortex are being re-released. This is in like a note in a comment thread where we saw images leaked of the new White Dwarf, and so these new terrain pieces, but they've been split up. So before, like in the Storm of Magic, they came in a box together at $30. Now they're being made available each individually at $15.
$15. I can't believe they retained that price. That's insane. That Balewind Vortex is a really cool thing, and that Mage Wraith Throne is awesome. Like, anybody who's seen like the conversion with Nagash, where he's like sitting down in the chair, like that's using that Mage Wraith Throne.
Now that said, it doesn't come with the boulders that the old Mage Wraith Throne did, which was like what made it so tall.
Mm-hmm.
But Balewind Vortex is very quickly finding itself as like a required piece of terrain in a lot of like matched play, because it doesn't cost any points and it doesn't cost anything for you to bring one. And anybody that's a caster can summon one.
See, that's just cheaty nonsense. I say put your casters on Balewind Vortexes just because that looks cool. I don't want any of the rules. The rules can take a hike. I just believe my casters should be floating on giant tornadoes as a rule.
A lot of people really like the immune to being able to be charged. No one can come within 3 inches and doubling the range of all the spells you cast. So
well, I say that's all nonsense. That's what I say. But
at a zero cost, other than you're not allowed to move when you summon it.
Sure.
So I think GW heard the cry of everybody that didn't want to pay $80 or $90 for a Balewind Vortex box on eBay, and they're releasing it for $15, coming to a GW store near you. What else?
Artificer tints, and this is what I'm really.
Yeah.
So they're releasing a new type of ghost tint paint, and for those who follow my channel, you'll know that I've previously reviewed other types of ghost tint paint, such as like, so this is Badger Minotaur's paint. I'm really interested in this because I don't know what the consistency of their artificer tint's going to be. I'm definitely going to pick those up and do a full review of them. Because they talk about how you can use it to intensify colors, to sort of smooth blends, to change colors. I'm very interested in what's going on there. I use these Badger Minotaur tints quite a bit.
So Vince,
but I'll be interested to have a second option.
For those that aren't up to speed on all the technical paint terms, is a tint like a really thin glaze?
Yeah, I would call it more of a. The idea of it is that it's a filter, right? It depends how you use it. If you a filter is an even weaker glaze, it's meant to literally interact with the color underneath it, but still allow the color underneath it to exist and come through and literally filter it through. So if you think about like your sunglasses, you know, if you've got like colored sunglasses, they filter the sunlight, right? But you still see the world in color. So if you put it over the top, the idea is that it would tint the color some way. If you mix it, these tints can intensify colors because they tend to be quite pigment rich. So you can take a desaturated red and make it more red. Make it like a really, if you've ever seen, here's an easy example. If you've ever seen like the big Dread Knights and stuff that that Forge World paints that are like that weird metallic sheen red that looks like really vibrant, okay? That's them using bright silver paint with some shading out of an airbrush, and then they shoot the previous Forge World tint red over it. Okay.
Got it.
So there's a lot of different effects you can achieve with tints there, so it's cool. I'm interested to see what they're going to do. There you go.
So GW continuing to expand their painting footprint.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to knock other people who are doing this down, because they're just giving money away.
Yep. So that's happening. From a switching over to Ninth Age, 1.2 dropped. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the show today, so I don't want to spoil too much of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to, just to touch on this, obviously our main feature segment today, we're going to talk about 1.2. And just as a note, we're going to keep this more or less at the high level, the core rules changes. I know Tom is going to try to drag me down into an army book or two. We're not going to do that. Beyond an example or two, because all the army books had their own individual changes and the way these things applied and stuff like that. And there's just like, I don't want to be here until next Wednesday. Like
I do.
We'll just roll the show through live until next Wednesday if we're going to cover and really give thoughtful commentary on the army books. Plus, the reality is there's a lot of people who are doing some very thoughtful commentary. For example, Skaven and AZ has been knocking it out, brother.
Yes,
that guy's been crushing army book review content. But so did Tuna Sandwichify did some. There's a lot of people who've done some. And in a non-pick of the week variety, if a channel that I just recently got introduced to that I really do like, if everybody hasn't watched Wargaming from the Balconies review of the 1.2 changes, I really do highly recommend it. That channel's great. Those two dudes are awesome. Why is their sub count what it's at? Let's go, guys. Come on. Let's get over there. Let's give these guys some subs. They're funny. They're putting out great content. What do you people need? Do it. 3, 2, 1. All right, I'll assume you did it. There you go. Way to go, guys. Good job. I'm very proud of all of you. All right. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We got a whole bunch of stuff.
So yeah, we'll get back to that, to Ninth Age news, because that's most of the show. And then finally, Bear Plastic. So a Bear base, or I'm sorry, words are hard. Plastic base Kickstarter has dropped. We'll have the link down below. More bases. Again, there's been a large helping of these Kickstarters recently. Reaper did one of these Kickstarters a couple months ago. A lot of people are trying to get into the basing market. And this Warlock Tower Wargaming bases is no different. There's only 7 days left to go on the Kickstarter. They have a really high goal. As somebody who has participated in running a Kickstarter campaign or been a tangential participant in that process, I can say, looking at their current pledge numbers, they are not likely to make that Kickstarter. But if there's enough people that are interested, go check it out. a Kickstarter you can pledge, and if it doesn't make, then you don't get charged your money.
Right. You're not.
So if it's something that you're interested in backing, throw your money at it or throw your pledge at it, and then if it actually does make, then that's when you'll get charged.
Right.
So it's worth, if it's something you're interested in, worth checking out. Go take a look.
Right on. Yeah, not a lot of news because most of the news is going to be the feature segment. We're all about the news this week. This is a big news week. Like this is some big stuff. So,
yeah.
but first, pick of the week. LT, your turn, sir. What's your pick of the week?
Okay, I'm going to cheat because head of content for Ninth Age, I'm allowed to do that. Sorry, Vince, you're going to be a jerk.
Go for it.
Pick of the week, I got two. I got two guys that just jumped onto the head of content team with really cool content, really enjoying it. First up is 2D Sick. He's on YouTube. He did a ton of content, pre-release content reviews on the books. He's got a real hyper attitude. He's a lot of fun to listen to. I like his stuff. It's cool. And if you're not checking him out, if you're not watching his stuff, you're wrong. Go check it out. The guy is really worth listening to, and his videos are great. He does battle reports, reviews, all the stuff that all the rest of us do, but he does it well, just like the rest of us. And then for my second is Xtol. He did a bunch of reviews as well. He's eager. He's passionate. He's relatively new. So if you're thinking about jumping into the hobby and looking for someone more at your level as opposed to somebody who's been playing for a while, go check out EXTOL. Ugh, like Tom said, words are hard. And
I'll make it easy. Both of the links to their channels will be in the show notes down below.
That's
so
what he
go
said.
check them out.
What Vince said. Yes, I need.
So you don't have to try to interpret Lord Tremendous's spelling. I
get excited. The stupid tongue in my head gets all screwed up. I'm an idiot. But those guys are worth checking out. Please go check them out. They're better than me. So yeah, go.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that, but at the same time, are we really setting that high of a bar there? I mean,
well, when the bar's on the ground, it's not that
hard. Yeah, you're far too hard on yourself. All right.
Somebody has to be.
Tommy, what about you, sir? What do you got for pick of the week this week?
I want to pick Tyler Mangle, friend of the show. He put out a blog just today. It was a review of the new Games Workshop texture paints. He goes through and to the new kind of like varying degree like thicknesses and tests some of the similar things and some of the new stuff. So it was the Grelin, the Sterling,
the new Sterling Mud version and the new Grelin Earth version.
Yes, both the original and then the new. And so he does them individually, and then he does them like mixing some of them together. And he comes away with some really neat effects.
Very cool.
For very little work. And so I think it's a worth checking out if that's a product that you're interested in for your bases.
Very nice. We've talked about basing paste before. Big fan. Yep. You know what, Lord Tremendous? I'm going to cheat as well. How about that? Because it's my show and I get to cheat. So here's my pick of the week. I'm not going to point you to a blog. I'm not going to point you to a video. I'm not going to point you to an article. Instead, I'm going to point you to a physical book made of dead paper trees.
Oh, you jerk.
All right. And that book is this book right here by the one and only Lord Tremendous, which he sent to me recently.
Oh, no.
Now, I don't know if you can get a sweet autographed copy like I do. I'm going to lord that over people. But I have been reading it, and I am really enjoying it. So this is, I'm not just recommending this because he said to me. I have really been enjoying this, bud. This is fun. Good. You have a very nice, I love the irreverent tone of one of your characters in here. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And this is it's funny because in my head that character has your voice. I don't know if that's intentional, but I hear you talking when I read him. So this is good stuff. I'm gonna I'm gonna force Lord T.
Can I put a pause on this?
Sure.
We need to contextualize this. You need to understand that Vince many years ago gave up reading fantasy literature.
Fantasy books, correct.
Yeah. He shut it down. Where I'd be like, hey, you ought to check, and he'd be like, nope, I don't read fantasy, it's all junk. That is a verbatim quote.
Yep.
And Vince is not only reading but praising Lord T's work.
Yeah.
So I want to contextualize this recommendation that he's giving.
Lord Tremendous has done what many other award-winning authors could not. Create a fantasy story I'm interested in. Like you want to talk about a high bar. Holy Moses. So I am going to force Lord Tremendous to give me a link where you can go and order your own copy because this is a worthwhile pickup. And a member of our community wrote a whole book. And as somebody who's written books, I know how much work this is. So support this man and his awesome, awesome work. So there you go.
Two of them are out. I sent you volume 1. There's a volume 2, and I'm working on the next one. And I'm also working on another one that's sci-fi. So
beautiful. You got a long career ahead of you. You're gonna leave us all behind when you become big and famous.
Oh, hell no. No. I'm always gonna be a ninth age guy, and I'm playing K-47 now too. So no. The nerd stuff will never go away.
Whatever you say, Lord R.R. Tremendous. I'm on to you, buddy.
Well, careful. If I get that rich and famous, I'll have to hire you as my PR guy.
Yes. Sweet. Finally coasting on the shirt tails I've been looking for a long time. Why do I know a bunch of losers who refuse to get famous? Jeez. Such a pain. All right. So there you go. I'll include the link and you can go check out the books. It really is a very fun read. And from the heart, I really, truly do recommend it. So
thank you.
There you go. All right. So on to some hobby time. So LT, what's currently on your wife's painting table?
Currently, she is getting ready to paint my BSB, my con, and she is almost done painting my Thunder Cannon, the Dozer and Smig War Machine Hordes model that I use for my Thunder Cannon. She's got it mostly done. There's just a few touch-up things and a couple of the scraplings that are on the base for flavor. And then after that, I'm going to push her to start working on the Merc Vets, those Cyborg miniature models and stuff like that. So she's got a lot on her plate already, but I'm abusive like that. So
sure, yes, really put nose to the grindstone. Which those Cyborg, those are metal, right?
Those guys? resin.
Are they resin?
Yep.
I really like those. I was gonna say I like them despite being metal because I do like the cast. I think they look really good. The fact that they're actually resin makes me actually like them way more. Like now
they're gorgeous. Yeah.
They were like a 7 out of 10 when I thought they were metal. Now that I know they're resin, that's like an 8 or 9 out of 10. They're pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I wish they had more variety, but then again, they do have a lot of variety, so I can't really complain. I'm just being, greedy.
Sure. I mean, it's whatever. It's fair. You always want more. With more models, that's the idea of models. You want more models and different models. That's why we love models.
Excuse to buy more. Come on, Cyborg, help me out here.
Yeah, I'm sure there's constantly more in the pipeline. I'm not worried about that. All right, Tommy, what about you, sir? I know what you're working on still, but where are you at?
So I am avidly preparing for Holy Havoc, which is coming in a week and a half. Unlike Vince, I am not ready. I'm sampling some of the Gifts of Chaos this evening, which will be showing up at the party. I completed a Magath Lord, still need to work on his base, and I'm waiting for that to come in for the store because I didn't have the right size base. I have my War Altar is much closer to being completed, and it's all of its beautiful glory. So I'm doing detailing on the War Altar, getting much closer. And then I will be switching back to some artillery and a hero and a couple units of infantry. So it's not too bad. I'm still again, everything's been base coated, everything's been kind of like washed. I just need to do like a lot, like bringing all the details back up. So like kind of the fine detail work. So yeah, I feel pretty good about it. I'm pretty close. I decided to add another thing to my plate that I hadn't really thought about going into this. And so I started another project. I looped in one of our friends who has done some design work on some of the books that we've published before. And so with his help, thanks, Travis. I've begun to put together not just you didn't do any of this. You don't get any credit for.
No, I wasn't pointing at me, dum-dum. I was pointing
Oh,
at
yeah.
his name, which is right here.
Yes.
Continue.
Who does our layout design stuff? Yes. And he helped out a little bit with he helped out. He did all of our art direction and stuff like that. And so with this project, I don't want to foist any bad design on him, but he did help out with some of the basic image stuff for me. And so I'm putting together not just a list for our opponents in the tournament, but something a little bit more. And so it'll be another terrible reminder of our game. And so I'll grab a screenshot of part of what I've been working on. So can you guys see that whole thing, or is it only part of it?
Yeah, it comes out. Yeah, there you go. So yes, we have our fun little army book to hand to our opponents with our list.
Yes. Well, it's not just our list. It's going to have some lore in it. It's going to have some additional stuff. So
there you go.
It'll be fun.
Bringing back the end times. Absolutely.
We are bringing back. Everybody hated the end times, and it's not going to be any different.
And everybody's going to hate our list. So there you go.
Yep.
It'll line up nicely. Just drawing the hate.
Making friends wherever you go, huh, guys?
Exactly. Don't sugarcoat it.
We're leaning into it. Like we knew that the hate rate is going to be strong when we go to this event, and so we're like, you know what? We're going to lean into this.
Yeah, that's why we're bringing alcohol, so we can hopefully soften the blow. That's the idea.
Yes.
It's a good plan.
Because the end is near again.
There you go.
Yep. So anyways, so that's what I've been working on, doing some additional design stuff and prep for that game as well.
Very cool. So for myself, everybody might remember this guy from last week. Obviously, I was at ReaperCon over the weekend.
Wait, hold on, stop. Okay, never mind. You're gonna do it. I was gonna interrupt you and make sure that you actually reflect what you did this weekend.
Yes, I was at ReaperCon over the weekend.
And you brought some hardware home, right?
Sure. Yes. Like nothing super.
Let's hear it, Vince. No. You don't get to back down now.
Yeah, man. You punked me with my book. You better show off your hardware, man.
Well, I don't have it at hand. It's over in the case, but that's fine.
We'll wait.
Yeah.
Yes, both of my submissions got gold, which I was very happy with.
I'm sorry, I missed that. One more time. It got what?
They got gold, which I was very
hold on.
with.
So on some of those pieces, like how many competitors were there?
There's a lot, but I'm not the only person who won gold. It's an open competition.
Right. Yeah,
and
what are some of the other names of the people who won gold at the competition?
All of anybody who is everybody who paints also won gold in those categories that I was in. Like if you know anybody who is a big deal in US painting, they're all there. ReaperCon is amazing. If you're somebody who loves the hobby like I do, who's obsessed with painting, I really cannot recommend ReaperCon enough. The number of artists that they bring there and that they just have set up, they just have a nice long table with all the artists, with like Jen Haley and Jessica Rich and Rhonda Bender and Forrester's there and Michael Proctor's there, and I'm forgetting so many people. I shouldn't have started naming names because there's like 10 more people. Aaron Hartwell's there. A lot of people who've won Best in Shows in recent years who do amazing pieces. God, forgetting even more people. And I'm sorry if I forgot your name and you happen to watch this. I really am sorry. I love all of you. And all the work is just like heartbreaking, staggering genius. Anyways. And so, yes, I was happy to be in that same grouping. It was very nice. Their work was better than mine. And like, no doubt about that. Jessica won Best in Show for Reaper model, and Marika won it for non-Reaper model. Their pieces were both like stupidly good. Just like Jessica painted the best model I've ever seen in my life. Whatever. I'm going to do a video where I review all this. There you go. So anyway,
but they didn't paint a moon.
Well, yes. So sure. Ooh, that's nice. I was happy for both my things. Both won gold. Both got the moon piece that you're describing got a perfect score, which I was happy about. And I took best kabuki model as well, which was super cool. So it's fun. It was super fun. I'm not trying to tout my own. I don't like doing that, but there you go. So,
no, but I'm going to put you on the spot since that's part of your hobby time.
It is. That's fine. So I didn't get to paint as much as I wanted, but I do have this guy, which I really love. These models are really good. So this is the Gale Force 9 giant. He's been converted. This is the Frost Giant. He'll be the first one for my new giant army. All giants.
So he didn't come in that pose?
He comes in the pose, kind of. He's actually like in his normal pose. He's got his axe. This axe is longer. It's in this hand and it's over his back. But he doesn't have like a cloak normally. But he does have kind of this like pose out there.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say that's a really weird, unusual sculpting choice.
Yeah, he is standing kind of strangely. Like you can see he's kind of like leaning.
Here are my weapons.
Yeah. But so be it. That's where his arms were there. I didn't move his arms or anything. No. But anyways, I like him quite a bit. I think he's a super cool model. And I converted his helm and stuff like that. So yeah, very fun. I've got more of these guys lined up. The Fire Giant's available now, picking him up. If you're interested in alt sculpt giants or you want some cool giants for your particular army, like I could totally see some of these getting easily converted over to be like, Chaos Giants or anywhere where there are other giants, you could do some really cool conversions with these dudes. So yeah, there you go. That guy's almost done. He just his cloak needs finished up and highlighted, and then he needs to be weathered. He's going to have snow on him because he's a snowy, frosty giant. Snowy. Yeah. So, hobby time out of the way. Let's get to the meat of this, shall we? Let's tuck in. Get ready. I'm dying.
Oh, there he goes. He's crazy.
There it is. Made me laugh. All right. Oh boy, sorry. So, obviously, this last week we had version 1.2 drop. Now, this is changes to the base rules. There's been lots of people talking about this again already. I recommended already the Wargaming from the Balcony. Check it out. They do a super deep dive, like almost page by page, really, of the rule book. So it's excellent resource. But we're going to talk about
recommend one as well.
Yeah, sure, by all means, please.
The second easing, the ninth scroll. Was there, and one of the rules team folk were kind of summarizing the biggest changes and why the changes were made. And so it's a great kind of just brief read through if you want like a 10,000 vote view of what changed and why.
I think it's a good primer before you read the rules to read the ninth scroll, right? Because it gives you a lot of insight into why it's made, which I am a huge fan of. Let me just say right out of the gate, whether or not I happen to like a particular change, the fact that they do stuff and put all that work into things like the ninth scroll where they give you the reasoning behind it is so critical. I can go back and pull 10 videos or my RPG or reference RPG podcasts on my RPG podcast where I talk about how the most critical thing you can do as a designer is communicate why you're making the design decisions you're doing. And the fact that they're doing that on the reg, super thumbs up. I know it's a lot of work. A lot of work, a stupid amount of work that is not being recognized. This is me recognizing it. Thank you. To Blonde Bear and to everybody else. And it is Bear. I was right. This came up 2 weeks ago.
I call him Blonde Bear because that's the way it looks to me. And he hasn't hit me yet. No.
I'm fine. Apparently, beer.
You are American.
Right. No, like he clarified in the comments, beer means bear and beer, B-I-E-R means beer. So it would technically be Blonde Bear. There you go.
Well, I'm going to invoke my right as an ugly American to mispronounce his nickname.
So now the question is he a fan of Spike? Vince got that reference.
Sure. Yes, I get it.
Sorry, I missed it.
It's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer reference. Spike, Harmony called Spike Blondie Bear. I gotcha. Okay. So at any rate, references to the greatest television show of all time aside, I don't think that's welcome to our new show. Buffy Weekly, where we discuss a 17-year-old television show. All right. So anyways,
perfect.
Yeah, let's get into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover some of what I thought were kind of the biggest changes and what we think of them, what we think about the impact of them, kind of why they were made and stuff like that. And, what we think from a design perspective and just kind of go through. We're going to hit some of the high notes here. This is certainly not going to be every change that was in there. Some of these overall, when taken in total, I'd say these changes were pretty big. And you know, one of the discussions that's been had is, well, we could have trotted this out slowly, or we knew we wanted to do all this, so we thought, let's rip the Band-Aid and let's see what happens. And they course corrections will be made, etc. Right?
Well,
So
like I want to talk about that as well, because there was actually one of the folks provided some additional rationale. Like they substantiated their statement about ripping the Band-Aid off quickly. It was a member of the executive board, and it was because well, anyways, we can talk about it now, we can talk about it later, but it involved like printing the rule book. And
yeah,
that raises questions to me. Like, it seems like a design change, you know, from at a high level of the direction of what Ninth Age is supposed to be, the vision of what it's supposed to be in the long term. And so I don't know when you want to talk about that.
Probably later on. Okay. I'm not sure that statement is being interpreted exactly correctly, but that being said, I know that's been a very
I can answer that question.
Hit me.
Yeah, this guy.
Go for it, Liberty.
Okay, so what Tom's talking about is absolutely accurate. One of the reasons that they want to move the changes along so much like that, as opposed to trickle, there's a few reasons, but I won't get into the other ones. I'll try to stay on topic. I do that, but one of the reasons that he stated was because they want to print books, not the T9A community, but companies and stuff like that want to more directly support T9A by printing books and stuff like that. Not that any exec or any T9A member is going to make any money off of this, because it's a non-for-profit. We're not allowed to. It's illegal. But in order to do that, in order for a company to be allowed to do that, we have to move far enough away from the original game that it's the spiritual successor of, that they can do that. And the reason they want to print out books is so that we can get them into brick and mortar stores, because in order for this game to have any kind of a future, it needs to be able to be produced by companies and put into stores so we can get new members. I mean, word of mouth is great and all, but if you can't go into a store and pick everything up, and some people just want to be able to do that, we're not going to have any future, no real stable future, especially with no new people coming in. So that's their angle on that one. But me personally, trickling out little by little all the changes, I think would have just been, well, we have no stability because it would take years. This way, in the current agenda as it sits now, we're looking at version 1.2 this time next year, and that should be stable for
I think
years.
You meant 2.0.
2.0, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
so 2.0. My bad.
And can I just ask a clarifying question? And
Absolutely.
How different do you imagine 2.0 is going to be from 1.2?
From 1.2, honestly, I don't think a lot of things that are... This is just me personally talking. This isn't me talking about anything else. Personally, I believe that 1.2 is your course changes. You know what I mean? Like when you're taking a bunch of different kits and you're gonna make a kit bashed model, you get all the big pieces together and you clump them on to get your basic design. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't see version 1.2 being recognizable in version 2.0 because a lot of things are going to be fine tuned. A lot of the rough edges are going to be smoothed out. I totally get why people are upset. I totally get that. Totally makes sense. But what I also see is the exec team, the rules team, everybody that's in the know is trying to assuage those concerns. Mm-hmm. There's a handful of individuals that are just going to be negative, and so be it.
Welcome to the gaming community. And
yeah, brother, you're not wrong. Some people, you know what? The internet is their shield, and God help them if they ever leave the internet. Can I pull up a data point just regarding so there's a big long thread in the T9A forums just kind of discussing this and general reactions, and there's a few
and stuff. Yes. There are a few. But I wanted to pull up a poll that
it's the initial impressions of 1.2.
Yeah, I took a screenshot of it, which is what I'm looking for. Here it is.
It's fine. What you've got is, I mean, realistically,
this is what was fascinating about it to me. Is that I don't know that we can necessarily say that it's just like a small contingent of the community that's having a problem with this. This is the status of the poll as of like an hour ago.
Mhm.
Okay, 600 and some people having participated in the poll. That said, there over the last year, 1.1 has had like 170,000 downloads or something like that. And so this is not necessarily representative of the current community. This is a very small percentage of the current player base potentially. But what I would say is fascinating to me is that they're like the absolutely like almost parallel breakdown of positive and negative. Like this truly, like in a sense, like the community is split on the current changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like 50-50.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, to be perfect. I mean, yeah. What is that? 29 and 17 is 46. Correct me if I'm wrong. Math is not a strong suit. 25 and 17 is 42.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
with 13%,
within a 4-point.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. With 13% on the fence still, could go either way. Dude, this is actually, in my opinion, completely accurate. With the amount of changes that have occurred, I mean, the complete shakeup of everything, this is actually honest as hell. This doesn't surprise me in the slightest. And people are valid in a lot of their concerns. A lot of people, I mean...
Well, wait a minute. Let's not blanket support their concerns.
Some of them are unfounded, but I know what you mean.
Some of them are unreasonable. Okay, fair enough. Yes. Some of them are literal gutter slime. I get that. But at the same time, a lot of people, yourself included, are voicing valid concerns. And that's the beautiful thing about this. Number one thing is this isn't a company like we're used to. This is a community-driven project, a player-driven product. None of this has been play tested yet. That's what we're doing until about April. We're play testing, we're giving our feedback back, and rules team and the execs and stuff will authorize and do changes and stuff as required when they're put in the forums, intelligently, not I want my ball back. And they're getting there. And they've pledged to do it. It's in the scroll, it's in a lot of the forums, they're actively engaged in there, all of us are, and we're looking for that. We want that feedback. Go play games in version 1.2. Come back with examples. Listen, Lord Tremendous, right here, when the cannonball hits and bounces off the building and goes all around my unit and everything takes strength 10 hits, 10 wounds and dies. That doesn't happen. Everyone calm down.
Not a real
That's
rule.
Broken. That's not a new rule. That's an example. I exaggerate to clarify. But when you come and say that and show it, we're like, oh, yeah, okay, good point. And then they go back and they tweak that. They change that in a hotfix. And they've already said they're going to do hotfixes and all that stuff. So, yes, this is not play tested. Yes, this is a lot of changes, and it's hard. Change sucks. And a lot of people, myself included, don't typically like change. Creatures of habit, especially the older I get. But it's a necessary, it's a legal requirement in order to push the future in this game. And no matter what the internet lawyers might tell you, there are legal considerations that have to be considered while pushing further away from the original idea, if that helps. So
and what I'll say is this, like legal stuff aside, because I'm not a lawyer, I just play one on TV, is this, like, every games to survive have to change, and what is being encountered here is not anything new or different in any way from every other game that has ever been published in the history of tabletop games, whether they be RPGs, CCGs, or war games. I've made a video on this, on the necessity and danger of change. Like every single company or collective or whatever ever, I'm not, I understand the distinction here. I'm just saying, like, every group of designers that have put out a game have grappled with this reality. Static games, exempting a very, very, very small few that have stood the test of time, right? That is to say, like chess or checkers, things that are sort of like permanently exist in a certain state. And by the way, even then, people still play chess in new ways now and things like that, and have alternate forms of chess that have come about in the last century.
Star Trek.
Yeah. But then that is a short list compared to that is like sub 0.1%. But games have to change to thrive. and change is also dangerous. So everybody's who's making games is riding a razor's edge.
So can I push back on that though? Okay,
Sure.
I want to voice some of the other concerns and voices that I am hearing in the community, and like, yes, I fully agree with that. As somebody that's participated on like game design teams and stuff like that, like I'm totally on board with that. But I think that so the first thing I would challenge is you said that, you know, like anybody, you know, across history, you look at the companies, like this is normal. One thing that I would push back on is that this change has happened 13 months after the original game was released.
Sure. Well, one might argue that that's fast feedback. Like my point would be that this community can gather and act on changes in ways that normal companies can't.
What are you getting at,
in
though?
an
I'm
RPG?
curious.
Yeah, so in an RPG, though, what that change looks like is a new PDF and a new rewriting a character sheet. In a miniature game, what that change looks like is hundreds of dollars of miniatures and tens, if not hundreds of hours of painting to get playable competitive armies on the table. When like wide sweeping force composition changes happen. So for example, I know some individuals.
He's been just raring to go on this. So all right, go for it, Tom.
No, but so for example, like I was interacting with an individual on the T9A forums, and there were they have an event coming up in November or in December, and they can't take their list because it's not viable. They would have to go out and spend a bunch of more money and repaint models, and you know, and basically take a somewhat untested list to an event in a month and a half away.
Okay, I
so
get
it's
that.
Just, these are like so it's just been
1.2 rules at this event.
Yes.
Okay, so they're jumping over.
Yeah.
You're right. That's part of the change. There's going to be lists and builds and models that I don't want to say are obsolete, but can't be taken like they were in version 1.1. The list changes and stuff like that, that's intentional. It sucks that they can't use their models as they did before. It does. My question to you and the individuals that have that gripe is, does that mean the force organization chart needs to be changed? Or does that mean, are you saying that these changes never should have taken place in the first place? Don't mess with my game or I'll take my ball and go home. If you think the force organization chart, big word, needs to be changed, awesome. Voice that on the forums. Don't voice it like an asshole, sorry. But you can, if you voice it like Tom just voiced it, which was flawless, by the way, that could be taken into, it probably will be taken into consideration, and it could get the change to happen. So for example, and this isn't an actual example, this is just me pulling stuff out of the air, my core choices are at 5%. That's total garbage, because now at 5%, I'm totally just, I don't even bother. I take a handful of scraplings as an ogre player and I'm good to go. And then I just take as many special choices I can up to, you know, haha, that's garbage. And so now I go and I say, my core choice should be at least 25% in order to be more on par with everything and keep my list power the way it's supposed to be, on par with the rest of the lists. And so, you know, in that spirit, I would suggest if you or the individual you're talking about, or anybody has a problem with the force organization chart for their particular book, go to the forums, voice it maturely like you just did, intelligent, be passionate about it. What the actual elephant? But but make your point clear. Hey, this is the situation. Not just I can't play with my favorite models anymore the way I want to, but hey, I cannot make a viable list the way I want to play this army because of X. I would suggest Y in order to fix it. And I guarantee, I promise you on my life, the rules team, the execs, everyone involved will take that complaint seriously and address you personally on the forums in order to help correct that. Promise you that'll happen.
Yeah, and in the conversations, I saw the participation of the rules team. So I don't want to mitigate or reduce that, and asking for suggestions and how they would suggest changing it, but that my critique is not one that can be reactively responded to. And what I mean by that is, like, these things aren't going to get fixed now because the genie's been let out of the proverbial bottle. Like, these changes have been rolled out in this amount of time. And so now there's going to be the fallout from that for individual forces and stuff like that until hot fixes can be put in, and all of those other changes can be made. And so some people may be stuck with unviable armies for the immediate future, or have to go pick up another one and begin painting. Pick up something else that may or may not be viable in 6 months to a year, based on whatever changes. And that's what part of my concern is that, like, with GW, we had 4 to 5 years. Like, once you got your army book, at best you had 4 years. At worst, the Bretts are still waiting on their book. And the Bretonnians, because like they never got their update from 6th edition. And so, I mean, what I would say is that so you had time to build your army and collect and paint and do all that. But now, with a year turnaround, 6-month turnarounds, entire lists can be invalidated by a handful of changes, especially when changes are happening at the core rule system. And so that would be what my critique is. Moving forward, you guys this shouldn't be an issue, because you guys aren't going to be making these drastic changes.
Right.
But there's still the immediate fallout that I think is what are making people feel so uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to give voice to.
The thing is, in my opinion, and I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, but I don't think if it's a major army breaking situation that it will take a long time to fix that. If it's a legit and the rules team, like you said, is active. They are looking. They are trying to fine tune it as quick as possible. There are going to be mistakes made. Every single person on the T9A staff has admitted, yes, v1.2 is not perfect. There are mistakes. Point them out. My content team, when we got the books early and did our pre-release reviews, there are 5 or 6 pages of errors that we threw out there, and one of the rules team was all over it like flies on poop and nailed a lot of things, fixed a lot. They did change in the Vermin Swarm book that one of their things is no longer called Tremendous. I think that is a travesty.
Absolutely.
And I am writing my congressman when I figure out who he is.
They should have kept the Tremendous category. I was excited.
Yes. Are you listening, rules team? Yeah, you guys really screwed up there. Where's the outrage on that one? Why am I the only one upset?
You got. I'm with you. Hashtag bring back Tremendous.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. We're gonna start a rally. Damn it. But again, like you said, when one of the bigger companies has a rule change, you'll have that rule book for 4 to 5 years, which means if it's broke, piss off, adapt, overcome, or piss off, play a different army. With this one, you can voice your opinion to the individual that could fix it. And hopefully, if it's validated, if they see it your way, and they could, more than any other company would, because you have direct lines to them now, you don't have to wait half a decade. You could get it in a month, maybe less, maybe more. It's possible. It really, and maybe never. It depends. Some people are like, I think my cannon should shoot 3 times in one shoot. You're an idiot. Go sit down. But you know what I mean? So yes, you will see a drastic situation. Yes, there are broken situations but they can be fixed a hell of a lot faster than most bigger companies who are, with respect, and I totally understand it, they are model sales driven, and they have to be because they're for profit. This is how they feed their families. So it's an advantage and a disadvantage. Take it or leave it, but hey, that's the reality of it. Totally get where everyone's coming from, but hopefully with solid, mature feedback and conversations, this will be fixed quicker than any other wargaming system possibly could be. I hope that helps.
But that could bump people out of events this year, or at least some events this year.
Sure. Here's my feeling to that. Okay, like I'll say this: yes, your list might be different, but your list, like, I've never been. Look, I'll openly admit I'm super biased on this, but I run a different list every game I play, and if you really are sitting at the bare mins, like you had your exact models and nothing else, and this is the exact list you had, and now that list is broken. To me, what I'm going to say is that sucks. Like, truly, that sucks. Okay. I'm not trying to say that doesn't suck. It sucks. But was that really where you were going to stop buying models? Ever? Like, were you really done? Like, was that the end of your hobby? Did you collect your 2,500 points and say, done? And if the answer back to me is yes, Vince, that's legitimately where I stopped, and I was never going to buy another model. Okay, well, then you've been put into a rough spot. But I'm going to say that's not the common situation.
I think the problem is spending $1,200 on Chaos Dwarves and having $600 of this $1,200 not fieldable together.
And that could be.
Now, in fairness, the reason that Infernal Dwarves are so expensive is because the original company killed them, and now it's a niche thing that has very few models, and the ones that are out there are super expensive on eBay. With the Ninth Age, just throwing it out here, there are already been Kickstarters and Indiegogos where new Infernal Dwarf models come out that are much cheaper than what you have to get.
I have some being shipped to my house very soon.
See, brother? So you're welcome.
No, I get it. No, like there's no critique. Like there's no critique there, but it's simply pointing out that
no.
That people that doesn't change the fact that they've spent money. And now they see these rules changes as what's taken away the viability of those models.
Yeah, and here's what I also say
that money.
Maybe, maybe not. It depends on what your goal is and how hard edge you're trying to be and blah, 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 blah. Like this is, I'm sorry, I think this is an overinflated concern. I'm not going to say it's not valid for nobody. I think it's valid for some people. I do. Yeah. But I think it's overinflated because I think the reality is, you're going to buy new models. You're going to try different lists. You're going to play different stuff. You were going to do different things anyways. Changes in the meta are going to make you want to play different lists. Changes in 100 things are going to make you want to play different lists.
Sure.
Changes in the nature of the tournament you're going to are going to make you want to play different lists.
So, Vince, let me ask you a question. Let's say that you are playing Kingdom of Aquitaine.
Sure.
Like let's just choose a random army, and let's say that when 1.1 dropped, you looked at it and you went, "Man, I want a 40 strong unit of Foot Knights."
And then that unit disappeared. But that's a rare case. Like most of the stuff, it's not. I understand that, but what you're talking about is a different situation. This is why I didn't want to get into individual army books.
But it's not
right down into this road.
It's buying models. And then now not being able to field those models.
You're not see, this is unfair because this is unfair. And all right, let me rephrase it. It's not unfair. Ahead. It's not unfair. You're not wrong there. However, the Ninth Age made it so that you can use your armies again. Okay? Because the original game was destroyed and it killed. Right after people got done spending a bunch of money on end time stuff, myself included. So you're right. You're losing the ability to use some models the way you want to or altogether. And you're right. And I don't know why they did that. I'm not part of the rules team. I don't have any insider information there. And that, I promise you, is being talked about in the upper echelons, even above my head. And I promise you, somebody's going, this is why we did it. But at the same time, the Ninth Age allows you to use every other model you've ever bought for a rank and file game the way you intended to use it. So let's not lose too much perspective there. It does suck that a handful of your models are gone now. And yes, that does suck. It doesn't mean it's permanent, but the rest of your army can actually be used now as you originally intended, thanks to this game, which is which is one of two games that allow that. So,
and what I'll say, Tom, is okay. Like the nightmare situation you just tried to paint me into a corner of, Tom, that's a situation that's happened to me like 6 times. I've been playing this game. Okay, I collected my first army under 4th edition rules. You think the same list was valid going forward at the end of 8th? You think there weren't units that ceased existing? I own 2 war wagons, Tom. Okay, I own a halfling hot pot. I own Lutland Croup and the Dogs of War. Like
you're equating changes that happened over 20 years.
It doesn't matter. It wasn't 20 years at the moment that happened. It happened one day. Okay? One day I could use them. The next day I couldn't. Like, it may have happened a long time ago, but that one day I had a valid army. The next day I didn't. Okay? And yeah, and the same way, 10 years from now, I promise you'll look back at this change and be like, oh, darn, I wasn't able to attend that random freaking tournament you're talking about in December because I couldn't use my Skullcracker thing or whatever silly monstrosity out of
You can
ID.
still
that
attend the
isn't a real
tournament. You
unit.
just can't play the list the way you
Right.
wanted to play it.
Well, you're assuming that you have the models to make up the
Right.
rest. of
I'm
it.
saying worst nightmare
Oh, okay,
scenario.
yeah,
Well,
You
like-
literally had exactly the models, and now you're screwed, and you can't go to the
Well,
tournament because you can't paint stuff
That
fast.
will never happen for me or Vinny. Like, so,
Right.
like, let me
No.
preface this. Like,
Right.
that,
That's
like,
an impossible
this is-
situation.
Yeah, this is an impossible. Like, I'm sitting on the equivalent now with the doubled points of like 140,000 points of ninth age models.
Well,
or
I was going to
something like
say,
that.
your shelf back there, you've probably got 4 or 5 million points altogether.
He's got a game store on the shelf. Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
So,
So-
that's not going to be an issue for me. But
Anyway, look. Here's the
but
thing.
it is for some.
That's fine and
And-
valid.
and
you
in a
touched on the
game that-
points.
Hold on, wait, stop. But at a game that is 13 months old, that's what my concern is.
This is
Is
the
it-
right time to feel that pain. That's what I'll say at 13
Okay.
months. Because
Okay.
if you're off to the races and running and you have a tectonic shift when everybody thinks it's truly stable, I don't think there was ever the expectation that we were in an incredibly stable form.
Sure.
They've said forever they're like all the communications have been we're aiming and making these changes. We aim toward 2.0, which will be the super stable version. If you had a tectonic shift as a 2.5 when everybody thought we were in super stable land, that's the way you really crush people's soul. Like they've been very open about the communications, we'll say. Now, can we pivot to talk about the actual changes?
Okay.
All right. Jeez, oh Pete's. Okay. You mentioned the doubling of the points, Tom. Hey, that's the first thing that was on my list an hour into the show. So, this is going to be a long one. I can tell that
Hey,
already.
Who cares? Who
I'll
cares?
shut up. I'll
My
shut up.
caffeine's... No, don't
No,
shut
I
up.
don't-
Don't
yeah,
you
I don't
dare.
want you to shut up.
Tom,
I want you
I
to
will
shut
call
up
you out. I
that
will make
thing.
shit up. Don't think I won't.
I want you to keep talking, just not about that specific thing. That's all.
I think that horse is pretty well beaten, though. I don't think it's
Yeah.
dead, but I think it's pretty well beaten.
I feel like we
It's definitely going to flinch when we're around.
So LT, I'm going to give this one to you because I know you have some thoughts about the points changes. So I'm going to turn this one to you to kind of kick this off because you've talked about it a little bit. And I know you have some specific feelings on the good and the bad of it. Take it away.
Okay, so in the Ninth Age, in order to do future rule or points balances for units and stuff like that, the rules team, the execs and everything decided to double the point costs. So what that really means is they, for the most part, doubled everything. The points are still loosely the same. It's just now everything's double. So if you played a 2,500 point list, now you're playing a 5,000 point list. However, that being said, they also did a little something because in major tournaments and stuff like that, there was a complaint that people were having trouble finishing a game in 2.5 hours. They were saying that 2,500 points was just too big of a game to finish in 2.5 hours. So when they doubled the points, they balanced the book at 2,250 as opposed to 2,500, which I personally don't like. This is me personally. I don't like that they did that. The game has been being played at 2,500 points, and changing it to 2,250 just because a specific group of individuals is having difficulty getting the let out and making decisions and playing a game in 2.5 hours is unfair, in my opinion. So it's not a huge big...
so much mass battles, like a mostly mass battles game, because it's smaller forces.
Yeah,
like you're cutting at what you're going from like 8 down to 7 units, 7 down to 6, depending on
your stuff. However, me personally as a player, I don't believe it's going to stick. It's going to take hold. I think a handful of groups might, but for the most part, I see 5,000 being the regular. My group is playing 5,000. The people I've talked to on the forums, stuff like that, pretty much everyone. All right, I'm not going to say it like that. The majority of individuals I've talked to, in fact, I haven't talked to anybody who likes 4,500 points. So I don't see it as anything other than here's what the book is balanced at. Currently, but 500 extra points into it isn't going to throw anything off balance that bad. I played 3 games now of version 1.2, all at 5,000 points. Every game has been really close. I've got a battle report up against the Dwarven Holds I just put up today. That game was super close all up until the end. It was going back and forth. It's still very viable, still very competitive. And so I didn't see any imbalances. My opponent didn't see any imbalances. The 16 people that were watching us play didn't see anything. So I think 5,000 points is still viable, and it puts you at the 2,500 you used to. So in the future, what those points are going to allow the rule team to do is to better tweak the point values of every unit and every individual model and stuff like that to better represent their power. Weaker, instead of doing half points or quarter points or something like that. Now they can do a full point and stuff and keep everything in line so that you're not paying the same for a goblin with light armor and a spear that you are paying for a scrapling with some thrown weapons and a banner. You know what I mean? It makes it so that they can finer tweak the power values of every unit in the future. Obviously, they didn't do it yet.
Yeah, this is an interesting one to me because, and Tom, I don't know if you have thoughts along this as well, but like from a game design perspective, this was an interesting sort of concept to me. So what we've done here, basically and I think you touched it exactly, LT, like the idea being, if I only have integers basically to play with, and I want to stay away from halves most of the time. And I think, by the way, it is a good idea to stay away from half points and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You get into weird math that starts to make people's brains hurt. So I think if you could just stick with whole numbers, that's a good world to live in, right? And if you've only got whole numbers, and the unit's slightly more than, or sorry, not the unit, the model, whatever you want to say, the guy, the goblin, seems slightly more than 6 or whatever, but not enough to be 7. Once that multiplies out, that there's nowhere else to go. That goblin is either 6 or 7, right?
Correct.
And so if you effectively double the range of what's valid, then you also can change how fine of a control you've gotten. Now, I think there is a bit of a slippery slope here, right? Like you could get down a rabbit hole like, well, cool. Why don't we just go to 20,000 points? Then we'll have super fine control, right? Like we can really get in there and just like get it to the exact number. Now that's a bit of I'm admittedly creating a straw man. Slippery slopes are
exaggerating to clarify, but I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can promise you that this is the points that are going to be set at. They've doubled it, which gives them more than enough wiggle room for every unit, which they've already said. I think it's in the 9th Age Scroll, the special edition one. So I think this is going to be the last time you see them doubling points or changing up the core value of points. They might further balance at 5,000 one day, but honestly, 500 points in a 4,500 point balanced book is not going to give you any real changes or any real differences, and it allows you to play with lists that you're used to playing with in version 1.1, the same size. In fact, with the way they're balancing and stuff like that, you might actually be able to take a little bit more. I'm able to fit bombardiers in my army now with everything mostly the same. So.
Yeah, it's obvious. I mean, the thing to keep in mind here and always remember is the point, as much as with whose line is it anyway, right? Like the points as a construct is a made up unit, right? Absolutely. It's not like there's a real thing we're putting our finger on that is something in the world I can touch and feel, right? It's just the points exist solely as a measuring mechanic. This is one of those ones that to me I'm like, what? 1,000, just keep it where it just keep the expectation of the 5K to the doubling, right? And call it a day would be my answer. And it's fine. If that's where it wants to be, that's where it wants to be. If that's where they feel like they'd have the proper amount of fine control to do some good statistical analysis and set things at the right place, cool. I mean, because again, it's a false construct, right? Like that is by that I'm not saying they don't have value. I'm saying that in the end there's 10 different ways we could do this, right? If this is the one that gives them the right amount of control, then it's the right choice.
Right. Yeah, so it's not a false construct in that. Like it's providing real functionality.
Yes, I simply mean the idea of the exact number or whatever.
Sure. By itself. We could be working in utils and it wouldn't matter. Right. Because it's about a comparative analysis, like comparative powers.
Yep. What I would point, like, I hate to bring any part of my normal life into my gaming life, but if anybody who's familiar with, say, like agile methodology or the Scrum process, right? Like one of the steps you do in that is you put story points on the cards that you're going to work on, and the points are literally made up. Right. That is to say, like their only value is in comparison to each other. They don't have any value out in the greater world. And it's the same way here. Like a goblin being 6 points has a value when it's compared against this orc that's 9 or something or whatever, right? Like I'm literally just pulling numbers out in true LT fashion. But that's the value of it, right? Yes, in their comparison to each other is where they actually find meaning. So there you go. Okay, so I think overall, positive to neutral change there.
Yeah.
And the only neutral part of it that I think is the fact that I agree with you. I think it should just be balanced to 5K. I don't like the idea of balancing it for a particular tournament scene or something like that.
I don't like catering to one subgroup of an overlarge community when it comes to something like this. And I honestly believe I get it. I get where they're coming from. I get the influence that was done here. But I think overall people are going to say no 5K. And I believe just knowing the rules team and the execs on the forums and stuff, that they are going to see that and eventually change it or just give it their blessing. I don't know how else to put it, but yeah.
Yeah, and I would also say, as you mentioned, I don't think there's a huge balance difference, honestly,
Not at all.
5K. Yeah. I really don't. I think for the most part, it's still pretty much the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. In the same way that really, like, in the old world, the difference between the balance of, say, like a 2250 or a 2400 or a 2500 game, it's not like suddenly games went wildly off kilter in the balance of that world, right? Like when both sides had those points, things stayed mostly the same. Now, if you go back far enough and you say, let's say you have a game between myself and Lord Tremendous, where Vince accidentally brings the wrong size list and plays LT with 2,000 points when LT's got a 2,500 point list. Well, that's a totally different experience. That's not what we're talking about.
I can't.
Yeah, that was awesome. But in these point values, though, situation here, that'd be 1,000 point difference. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'd beat you even harder. Oh man, don't feel bad. Same thing happened recently. I went and saw Demonic Orchard down in Texas, and we were playing a game, and he was playing a 2,000 point list. I was playing a 500 point list, and the first game we played, I steamrolled him. The second game we played, he almost beat me.
Yep.
And then we found out way afterwards. I was like, hey, your list doesn't add up to 2,500, not even close. And he's like, oh my God, I played the wrong lists and still almost beat you.
What that tells me, LT, is that clearly UI and Randy are all some very hard-edged players who take
You're
this
not kidding,
very
man.
seriously.
Or you guys are terrible at math.
Also true.
Guilty.
Also true. Yep.
Guilty. I still use my toes. Yeah.
There you go. All right. So let's move on to some army construction changes, because obviously this was a big one, right?
Yes.
The old categories that we have been familiar with for a little bit of time have changed. And the reason I say a little bit of time is because it's not like these, again, I always take the long view on this just because I'm about to click over to my 20th year in this hobby here pretty soon. So I feel as though I've seen a lot of different things change over time. And, the concept of like the old splits and percentages and how they were, that's not the way the world always was. And there were different ways to construct armies in the past. And so now we've got another way to construct armies. So obviously here what we've got is now we've got our characters grouped into a single sort of block. The old distinction idea of lords and heroes is gone. We've got our core. We have our a thing called special, which actually varies. The core percentage is going to generally vary. The special is going to generally be, I think it's in most armies it's unlimited, right? I haven't.
It's unlimited in all the armies. Yeah, special is sky's the limit. Yep.
Okay, cool. I didn't read every army book yet.
Yeah, the amount of points you can put in there is unlimited. Usually the individual units have like a 0 to whatever, right, 0 to X that you can take. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And then you have like other categories that generally represent shooty stuff or monsters, sort of looking to address like gunline type skews and monster mash type skews being the two that I, see, and they have different flavorful names, hence the hashtag bring back tremendous.
Oh my God, you guys got to do that.
And so, and I think the real key here is the percentages vary per army, right? Like that is to say, one book's core percentage. Let's say there are some books that still have what we would recognize as, say, a 25% core, and that's still remained the same.
A majority of them do. There's one or two that have less than 25%, and I think there's one that's 35%. I don't remember for sure though. I've looked them over, but I don't have it all committed to memory yet.
Yeah, if I remember right, yes, I think you're right. Again, this is why we're not getting into the Visual Army books, because frankly, I haven't had time since it's come out to go through, that many Army books and internalize all the information. But the point being, it can vary.
Yes.
And obviously that has
I've just done Chaos Wars and a little bit of Kingdom of Aquitaine.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. Most of us have gotten into maybe the Army we're playing, right, and maybe a couple other books. But I don't think anybody outside of like the internal teams have had a chance to really, really deeply internalize every single book. Like literally say who could just like spit to me the percentages down the line of all the books. That would be
working on it.
I expect a report by Thursday.
Yes.
That's not fair. Friday.
There you go. Yeah, let's be reasonable. We've only got 8 minutes until Thursday here where we are. So, all right. So what do you think of this overall, LT? Let me go to you first on this. What do you think of this particular change?
This particular change, the Army organization chart, in its current iteration, I'm 100% okay with. I like the direction. Is it fine-tuned and perfected? Hell no. And they know that. I know that. Everybody who's looking at it knows that. But I like this a lot better because it stops the gamey list. You know what I mean? Like, I think we were talking about it earlier. I've got a unit of 8 mercenary vets with ogre pistols and poison and +1 ballistic skill. Now I've got another unit of 8 mercenary vets with brace of pistols and armor piercing and weapon master. So these guys are actually cheaper and do very similar to what the other ones do. And now I've got 3 units of 4 bombardiers, and now I've got a thunder cannon and a scratapult. Ha! That's how I'm going to have fun. I'm going to castle up in this corner, and everything that tries to come at me is going to get shot off the table. That's good fun. No, that makes you an a-hole. So don't get me wrong.
The needle, right?
What's that?
Like it just moves the needle. Like, so you're saying that, like you said, well, it kills gamey lists. No, it just changes where the gamey lists sit.
Well, here's what I would say. Let me put it. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, it kills the gamey lists as we know it now. Yes, people are people. They're going to figure out how to do new gamey stuff, but hopefully with the force organization charts the way they are, it makes it very difficult and very obvious to spot those individuals, so that I guess loophole or contingency or whatever you want to call it can be closed, mitigated, or possibly it's not even that big of a deal. It's actually a disadvantage, but time will tell. I haven't seen anything yet, but it's 24 hours old now. So
yeah, sure. I mean, here's my thought on it. And I think what it's really, and so one of the points of game design that I've really tried to hammer home, and it's something that I think a lot of people don't recognize, is that there are no free changes in game design. Something can be mostly good, but there is always bad. By that, I mean, if you change a rule, there is going to be good and bad. I know people want to believe that there's this one perfect change, that if they just did this, everything would be perfect. Get out of here. That doesn't exist. If you start a sentence like that and you're talking about a design element, you are wrong. And I mean that. Like, I can say that with carte blanche.
There is no platonic rule.
There is no platonic rules. Yes, absolutely correct. There's no perfect triangle of rules out there. It just doesn't exist.
Now, in the defense of the ignorant, I'm sorry to interrupt. In the defense of the ignorant, I myself thought that too, until I got involved in the Ninth Age. I'm not involved in any rules or anything like that, but just seeing it from a different your perspective, I was ignorant. I thought that too. I thought, like Tom said, I thought there was a platonic rule that if X equals X, then all is pineapple. And no, all is not pineapple. Yeah. So no, you're absolutely right. People that are ignorant, and not in an insult, just the actual dictionary definition.
Who just haven't
ignorance.
done the game design work. Yeah.
Right. They don't get that. I didn't get that until I got involved, and so it's a learning thing as well. So I can get where they're coming from. They're wrong, and getting them to realize that is hard because people like me are stubborn. But no, I totally get what you're saying there.
Yeah, and so the good with this rule is that it sets up expectations about the way this game is supposed to be played, right? And it sets a core a core set of experiences that you can have. Now, the bad of it is, if your personal fun and your only
Is the gun
fun
list.
is that gunline list that LT just described, right? Because
Yep.
the problem with LT's list wasn't that nobody at the table was having fun, right? It's that it's possible, it's perhaps even highly possible that only one person at the table was having fun, right?
Yep.
And but now what you're going to hear, now I hear your immediate pushback, but Vince, by blocking off that list, you've said that the other person's fun is more important than mine, right? And my answer is yes. That's what's been said.
Thank you.
Because unfortunately, your fun was less fun to a much broader section of the population and created bad play experiences more often than it created good ones. It's unfortunate that particular thing that you greatly enjoyed isn't the thing that is greatly enjoyed by everyone, and that sucks for you. Okay, that's the bad. I'm saying it's bad. That's why I'm saying there's bad to this. But I think on the whole, it is healthier for the game in the long term, because those skews also create bad experiences for newer players, right?
Newer players, even first time, second time tournament players.
Yeah.
I've got this great, well-rounded list. All I have to do is, get into combat, do this, that, or the other thing, and then you run into the, 2 big bricks, Merc Vets, 3 units of Bombardiers, a Thunder Cannon, a Scratapult, and a horde of Scraplings, and you're like, what do I do against this? You lose. You lose in list design, and they're trying to make that a less viable option, that you don't it's not rock paper scissors. It's not I'm just throwing so much metal down range at you that you can't do anything about it, or whatever does make it across gets eaten alive by Scraplings, for example. Your fun is like pulling the wings off a fly and giggling about it. Tons of fun for you, but the fly is miserable. And if that's the way you got to have fun, you may need to do some soul searching about the kind of individual you are.
Yeah, what I would that's harsher than I would put it. But what I would say is,
I'm a jerk.
No, my feeling on it is this, that it sets up the expectation. Like, the game can't be for everyone. A healthy game identifies its core audience and makes the best game possible for that target audience, right? And I think what this change says about the game is what we are encouraging and what we want to see out of the armies you bring are mixed arms forces that are interactive with each other in the way that they play, right? And I think that's the expectation that's being created by this. And I think that's fair. It's totally fair to say that's what this game is about, right? And if that isn't what you enjoy, then you've got to make a hard choice. Try to find a list within that new thing that you can still enjoy, or not play the game because you can't have your version of fun anymore, right? And that sucks if you're in one of those people in those positions. And I am sympathetic, but unfortunately, that's where it is. And I think for the overall health of the game, it is a positive choice.
And for those individuals who are having we're the ones pulling the wings off of flies, if you're open-minded enough, this is directly to you, and if you're pissed off at me right now, I'm probably talking directly to you. If you're open-minded enough and you're willing to give it a shot, instead of just throwing everything to the ground and stomping off, I would suggest that you try a different list using the rules that are currently in version 1.2. Get a few games in it. You might find you do a hell of a lot better. You might find that you have a lot more fun. You might find that people playing against you want to play against you again. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen, but it's better than just throwing everything on a shelf and storming off. Give it a shot. Try it out. Give the rules a fair shake. And if in the end you see X, Y, and Z isn't working out for you, go to the forum. Say, hey, listen, I was the guy that tore wings off of flies, and now I'm tried this, and I've discovered that this particular unit works like garbage. This is the way it was supposed to work. This is the way it worked before. And now my combat unit is throwing its swords at stuff. That's unacceptable. And maybe get it fixed. Maybe get it changed. Maybe have an actual hand in perfecting the game, as opposed to just stomping up and down and flailing your arms around. Good exercise, but really unproductive.
Well, and I think if you have those, if you do play those games, you can go and give that specific feedback, and you probably can push and state, if you can state reasonably why you think it does, why the restriction has gone too far, because I think that's one of the things that
Yes.
in the current percentage layout, in the attempt to cut out SKUs, I think there's some valid lists that have also become impossible or difficult to make in some armies, right? And those are the things that don't need to be pushed back, because where that line is drawn right now might be wrong in some armies, right? And they're
Absolutely.
going to need the feedback from people to redraw those lines properly.
Also, absolutely. Yes, and that's the idea. Yes, we are all actively playtesting version 1.2. That's what happens when you have no payroll. That's part of the game now, guys. If you're into T9A, you will be part of the playtest team. Welcome aboard. Get out there and play those damn games. That's my direct order. Go out, play games. Let me know how they went.
Well, I think that's good advice. It's fair. Like, yeah, experience a thing before you judge a thing is probably, in general, fair advice in life. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's move on. I don't want to move on real quick. I'm sorry. Let me hold on. Tom, did you have any other thing you want to say about this? Because I know this was sort of like a thing where you had some serious thoughts too, and I don't want to cut you out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost LT. He'll be back.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I would say is that I'm just really sensitive to those people who, like, when I come to a Chaos Dwarf list, I want to lay down a bunch of siege. Like, I have a bunch of pretty models, and that's what I want to do. And I want to support it with my awesome, like, halberd gun guys. And numbers don't allow that. That means I have to run a bunch of orcs now. Like, a bunch of hobgoblins. So that's the long and the short of that. And I'm just sensitive to, like, yes, I don't get the, like, yes, on one hand,
Sorry.
my fun,
We figured you'd
like,
be back.
to link back onto what Lord T was saying. Okay, my fun was causing other people to not have fun. Well, I could just go to the other games that can use these same minis and play those now.
Sure. And
like that's part of the problem. Like, we live in a golden age of gaming. Okay.
Right.
Because we have a bunch of games that we can use all these minis for, but that's also a problem for each of the individual games. And the onus is now on those game crafters in cultivating a community. Because if they're not stewarding that, people are going to flee and play where they want to, how they want to play, where they want to play. If you want to play a gun line in Kings of War, you can probably do that. If you want to do that in AOS, I can assure you, you can do that.
And that's where drawing these lines is going to be tough. Like, yeah. I hope no one thinks that drawing this line of, like, what's the proper percentages is a super easy task. I do not envy either the rules team or the individual army book committees.
No, it's an impossible task. Like, so don't misunderstand me, rules team. Like, I understand what you're doing. This is my job in, when Vince and I publish books is developing the rules.
Yep.
So it's going from Vince writing them to me going, this shit doesn't work. We're after midnight. This doesn't work.
We're after midnight, so now it's because they could be watching this at any time of day. Sure. Yes. Okay.
If you're at work, you're probably going to have to talk to HR now.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. No, but just so my critique is that I think that there's a special onus on kind of in the unique gaming environment that we're in, because yes, this is a mixed list, but some armies don't do that well with their current units. Now, yes, changes can be made potentially, but now you have to create a legal case for why you think changes need to be made, and hope that it gets bought by your rules representative. And if it's not, you're up a creek.
Well,
so you can either move on.
If it's not, it could be because you're wrong, or I mean, or it could be because it's just not feasible. I want my cannon to fire 3 times every phase. Too bad, no. But I would really like that, and that would really help my shooting phase, which is weaker.
Yeah,
we're firing a cannon 3 times is not going to happen, and I'm not saying that's what people are saying, but yeah, and the whole if this keeps going this way, I'm going to go play a different game, then you're going to go play a different game. That being worried because of that threat of what a handful of people are going to say isn't a reason not to do change. It's actually more of a reason because it's shaking everything up. And yeah, you could go take your models, play AOS. You could take your models, go play Kings of War.
Yeah.
You could do that anyway. Do it. Go have fun. They're both good games in their own right. So go have fun. Enjoy yourself. But understand that saying I'm going to take my ball and go home isn't a valid argument. And no, you don't have to make a big legal case in order to get a change. The point is you have a voice in the whole thing,
Sure.
which you don't have with any other game. AOS, Kings of War. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with their customer service, but making the community happy with the way the army plays in general isn't top 3 on their things because
I don't know. GW seems to watch our show. That's all I'm saying.
All our ideas.
Listen, that's garbage because if they saw me on the show, you guys would be getting C&Ds yesterday.
We're off the air tomorrow. Yep, exactly.
No, to piggyback on that though, Lord T, one thing that I found helpful in the conversation amongst the ID community, one person, something they said, and I think that people really need to take this seriously with whatever force you're coming at it with. And it's that, one thing he said, this is a reimagination. So the new vision is a reimagination of our army for a new edition of the game. This is not the same army.
Correct.
And what he's communicating is that like we have an expectation that we should be able to bring an artillery train, and we like for Chaos Dwarfs, this is what my models are. This is what it was in the prior game that is no longer. And this is what the expectation of what the Chaos Dwarves or the Infernal Dwarves should be doing. And what they're saying is a new vision of what this force is being cast with 1.2, with all the forces. And people need to understand that they're not playing the same armies anymore. These are new armies.
Yep.
And as always, some may be more different than others, right? Again, this is spread out.
Yeah.
Like it's not, some armies are going to feel very much like their previous version predecessor. Some might feel more different. I mean, that's just it. And my guess is that'll continue to vary some over time as this gets refined. Yep. So,
Agreed.
Okay. Let's move on to, this is a change it's small, but this was one that I was honestly super happy to see. I cannot explain how happy I was to see this one.
You and me both, man.
Yeah. And so that is scoring units, just the label of a unit as scoring versus needing a banner or whatever, blah, 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 blah. Those two rules, right? The idea of like a banner having a standard and what it did, flying a flag around, and the effects it has on a unit, right? There's a mechanical benefit. Yes. And the mechanical benefit to having a guy waving a flag, right? Which is like a thing. If you think about this, or when I put my head in this in my design space, that is happening because that dude exists in the unit, right? In other words, he's waving that flag around, and because of that, that unit is being conferred some benefit, right?
They hold the magic chest token. Yes.
Correct. Yeah, they've like literally in world. There are the other troops in that group look up at that flag and they are inspired, or they run faster, or they can blah 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 blah. Whatever the crap is going on, whether magical or not, right? Whereas scoring unit, right, is a purely gamist construct.
Yep.
It has nothing to do, like the idea of can they achieve these objectives, can they hold and take within the span of like this meta points totaling of what's going on in the scenario of the game, right? So I was very happy to see those two rules disentangled, that now a unit can simply be labeled as a scoring unit, and the fact that they may or may not actually take a flag, and that flag, whatever the effects of those two things are no longer attached. So what are your thoughts on this one, LT?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Number one, you don't have to remember your banners anymore because in v1.2 you don't lose your banner when you break anymore. You lose your unit, you lose your banner. But if you break now or whatever, you don't lose your banner. But in the old rules, you had to remember which unit had banners. You had to remember, okay, this one doesn't count because it's a character banner, but this one's cool. I don't know if this guy's got a banner or not, because not everybody had it modeled correctly in every game, and all that other garbage. Now it's just, okay, I have a unit of tribesmen. My tribesmen are a scoring unit. I could have 3 of them. I could have 15 of them. I could have a banner in there. I could have no command. This unit gets close enough to the objective, and nothing's contesting it. I control that. I love that new change, and it's so clear. Perfect. Great.
Yeah, agreed. Tommy, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it is cleaner from a rule standpoint, is what I would say.
Yeah, I talked about there are no changes that have 0 bad. What I'll say is this is one of the ones that's closer to that, right? Because now the bad of this is what gets labeled as a scoring unit, what doesn't, and things like that, right? But like, I think on the whole, this is of all the changes, honestly, this is one of the ones I'm most positive about. This, because exactly what you said, it's so clean. It's so much easier to remember, to know. I don't have to worry about models and, when things flee. And I didn't bring the right individual guy who happens to be holding a stick today. So I'm going to have to, and we're going to forget. And like, my opponent's going to be like, oh, wait, crap, that unit could take that objective. I forgot. You didn't bring your model that had a flag, right? Yep. So...
And another, from a frugal standpoint too, I no longer have to buy banners just to have a scoring unit now. I mean, I don't have to spend those 20 points for a banner guy that I normally wouldn't want in that unit for whatever reason, because the point cost, because of whatever. Now it's an option, and so that's huge. And yep. I really, that was a stroke of genius in my opinion.
Agreed. And then obviously now, again, when we get down to the individual army levels, of course, people have some initial thoughts about what is a scoring unit, what isn't a scoring unit. I highly recommend people go watch Skaven and AZ's Vermin Swarm likes dislikes video. He's got about 10 minutes in the middle of it talking about scoring units in Vermin Swarm and his particular dislike of the way that that's set up. And I will say I am empathetic to his position. I tend to agree with Skaven and AZ. As with most things, he is as ever my magister, and I trust him. I'll be his dictator rat any day of the week. So there you go. But I think that's all fine. That's stuff that, to me, that's just an engineering problem that gets worked out over time, right?
That's a development problem.
Yeah, it's a development problem. Like, that's fine. It'll get fixed, right? Like, if the right mix of scoring units isn't present in the army, surprise, surprise, that'll be an easy to locate thing, and it'll get adjusted, right? I think that over time that's an easy fix. I love that the actual rules change itself. This is one of those ones I'm all positive about. All right. Next one. Okay, here we go. This one, it's a biggie, but this should have happened so long ago. Dear God Almighty, this should have happened forever ago. Okay. The death of templates. Yeah. Now look, I want to touch some bad right away.
Like, I'm sad. Can I just say that?
Sure. Are you sad because there was an admittedly cool amount of fun to launching that template, to hitting with it, and to setting down like that? If you were an army that had the big pie plate, to setting down that big pie plate over a group of models and looking at them through that clear template and being like, oh, all of you little idiots are going to get crushed.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like, I loved it. Every time I touched that pie plate, I'm like, this feels good.
Yeah, there's a tactile sense.
And even when it was because I just miscast. I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt. well, it's the big one today. Yeah.
Well, brother, trust me, with the miscast chart now, it's still gonna hurt.
Well, we're gonna get to that.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry. I hate to jump, but
I acknowledge that. No, I know. But no, again, it was that tactile. It was that tactile. Like, there was just something about that where it's like, oh, rolling out the big guns. Where it was this unusual small corner niche thing that some armies got to play with, and I enjoyed playing with it when I was in those armies.
Sure. I'm gonna ambush journalism, Lord Tremendous here. You ready? Here we go. Ambush journalism. The reason to be upset about this is the same nonsense reason that LT clings to metal models. Because he likes the tactile weight of being able to feel them, even though for all the other rules and reasons, it's clearly better to have plastic or resin. But I like the feel of the thing. I'm a touchy-feely person. That's Lord T's response to metal models.
All right, Vince. All right, number one, you just got a face touch when I see you again. All right, I'm just gonna touch you like you're a metal model. Number two, I know you like that metal model I sent you.
I do.
And number three, yeah, you got me dead to rights there.
Yeah,
absolutely true. Counter. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, it's awesome. Like, I love the tactile, and like, I'm just gonna miss it. Like,
sure.
I'll give you that. The visual stimulus and everything when that happened, and the excitement was neat. But I hated when I saw somebody pick up a plate, the 3-inch or the 5-inch, even the old spray teardrop template. Hated that, because whenever you had a scatter, and I know both of you, I guarantee that you've had this argument when it came to seeing which direction it's scattered. You always had that person. You're looking at the arrow and you're seeing one angle, and then your opponent puts it at a different angle, and now you got to have that uncomfortable conversation. Well, your angle's a little bit off. You need to go closer to your models. No, I'm looking right at it. It's going towards yours.
And then you're getting out the
laser
ruler,
pointers.
And then somebody bumps.
Laser pointers are the answer.
Laser pointers and
exactly. I gotta buy more crap to carry with me.
Third parties come in.
Awesome.
Hey, you come over here and look at this and tell me which direction you think. And then invariably, one of the two individuals would get a little salty. Not saying they throw a hissy fit. Not saying it happened to everybody or every time, but it's happened to all of us. And I hated the template system for just that reason, because it was always the same thing with the scatter. Okay, or you get the lazy measurer. Okay, looks like I still hit 5-year guys, and then pick up the dice and toss it, and it's like, okay.
I would say if I had to put my finger on the number one thing that's caused arguments at my tables in all of my years, it is how many models were hit by a template that's scattered in some way, right? Because when it dead centered, it was fine. There's an easy picture you can reference and go like, yes, you hit this X number of models. Cool. But the second that thing moves, even slightly,
2 inches,
and it's just like the world is in chaos.
Yeah, advanced physics problems start coming in. No, because you're not hitting the corner there, and then of course you're holding it, and everybody shakes because we're all human. Our damn heart beats, and so it's nope. Now I've got 32 in a 20-man unit.
And so this is why I say it's not free. I openly admit the bad, and I get it. I get that sense, that loss, that feeling. I don't disagree with it, but to me, the good overwhelms the bad here. The death of templates and the change to like it hits this X by X on the ranks and the files. It's clean. It's simple. It's fast to resolve. It's everything I love in a game mechanic. You
and
don't
it's
argue
precise,
over
it's
it.
absolute.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
I
played. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say if I could sum up, like if I could literally boil down my entire game design philosophy and how it would be applied to rules, it's this change.
Yes.
Right? Because it eliminates a whole section of discussion and time wasting and third parties and arguments and other tools and problems and disagreements and bad feelings at the table and just in the invitation of a lack of clarity. I'm not saying a lack of clarity happened every time. You and your opponent might totally agree. I think it's 13. Hey, I think it's 13. Yay! And that might have happened.
But you got excited about it because that never happened.
Right. But that wasn't the every time experience.
No. Yeah. Another thing that I like about it too, and this is coming from a guy who's played against dwarves who had war machines, Empire of Sonstal who had the rocket battery, the volley gun, and a cannon, and against a Orcs and Goblins player who had 4 skewers and 2 git launchers. it made it so that not once did we disagree with whether or not he hit what he hit or not. And I enjoyed the games immensely more because I have had with each of those individuals, we have both gotten a little salty at each other because we disagreed with the angles or the positioning or how many got hit and stuff like that. And these are just friendly games. I mean, we're only playing for $4,000.
These are friendly games with people you play all the time who are your friends.
Yep.
Right? This isn't a rando you just met at a tournament when you're playing hard edge. I think that's the relevant thing here. Yeah.
No, I think overall, even though we lose a little bit of the tactile feel and the excitement of positioning the template, what we gain though in just enjoyment and absolutes as opposed to abstract, I would make this sacrifice 100 times over every day, every time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I've scared Tom off.
Did we lose Tom?
I'm just mourning.
He's mourning the death of his.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna frame a set
of the templates
and hang them on my wall, just like
they're sitting right. They're right there. Like I'm staring at them. They're right there, falling out of my cabinet right now.
All I can say to this is good. Like yep. I am 100% behind this. Way to go, rules team. Good job on that. Again, not free, and I get the loss, but on the whole, this is such a good change. So thumbs up from this guy. All right. Removal of options from units. So I kind of have this blanket, but let me see if I can get down to what I mean by this. A lot of units across books lost particular options they had. The easy example, I'm gonna lift this directly from the Godfather himself because I think he summed this up quite well. When you took a unit like Peg Knights out of Kingdoms of Aquitaine, right? What could happen is you could have 3 units of these Peg Knights on the table, and they could all take 3 very different capability sets, right? That made them perform in different ways, but none of which would really be modeled. It's not like you were taking one group that had, like a shield and a weapon versus another group that had big 2-handed axes or something, right? That's not what I mean. Like that can be visually represented. This was like this group happens to skirmish and vanguard and ambush and whatever, like these sorts of rules that aren't really modeled in the same way on the model. And so it could be very difficult for your opponent to remember which group is which group has which capability, etc. I will take probably the less. I think this has been a fairly controversial change. I think there's a lot of people who mourn this lack of options or this loss of options. And here's what I will say. I am behind this one 100% because I've done videos on the paradox of choice. And to me, there was just too many options on too many units. It often, like, looking at some of the units in the previous version, I'm going to be honest, my head would hurt with thinking about the different ways I could equip them and point them and all that stuff for a lot of options that probably weren't frequently taken. If you took them, that's cool. But again, this is one of those things. It's not a free change. This has a big downside. Some people loved the options they might have lost, right? And again, that sucks. But for the overall health of the game, for people to be able to interpret units and understand what they can do and know what they're playing against and be able to track them during the game, this is a healthy change. And by the way, it's not like units are just like, let's be clear here too. It's not like the units are just like bought and just like, oh, yep, that's it. You just buy the unit and you have no options. There's still plenty of options on a lot of units and how they're armed and equipped. Most of that stuff stayed around. A few units lost a few weapon options, but that's the rarity, frankly. Most of the weapon options remain, and even some of these other optional things remain. I think it's good. I really do. One of the great paradoxes of my experience in game design is that players want a number of options that will make the game worse for the average player. People always want more to the detriment of the game. And that is my experience across a multitude of games and different types of games. It's a rough pill to swallow that limitations are good at a certain point. But I think it's true. I understand that's probably a controversial position, but there I am. That's where I fall on this. Lord T, what do you got to say about this one?
See, I could fall either way. I'm honestly on the fence on this one, and I think that's just because I'm an over entitled fat American. Uh, honest to God. I don't have a problem with the options for the most part that have been removed, or auto included in the unit. Some of them have been removed because you just get them when you pay for the unit now. And in fact, there's a lot of situations where it's like that. Now, okay, you don't have to buy this. You just it's part of your unit now, and then you could take a great sword or a halberd if you wanted. But I liked that specific units could have multiple functionalities, I guess. What I didn't like is when I was at a tournament, because friendly games, all that WYSIWYG is out the window as far as I'm concerned. But when I'm at a tournament or something like that where I expect WYSIWYG and I'm playing a game against, for example, Kingdom of Echotain, and I've got the oh god, I can't. The three different flavors of knight on the table, and they all look the same. And I'm like, well, what is that one? Oh, this is the one that hates you. This is the one with great weapons. This is the one with lances. But they're all modeled the same. They're all colored the same. And I'm like, none of this looks different to me. I don't know what the hell they are. So I got to keep asking them questions about the unit, like a dill hole, until the game is over, and I'm going to get docked sportsmanship because the guy's irritated with my 500 questions. So losing the options and making it so that this unit has this capability plus or minus a couple of options. This unit does this unit does that. For clarity purposes, I like it, but I'm a little torn because I also see, like I said, I don't know. I'm on the fence. I go both ways.
No, I get it. And you feel the bad on this one. Like, of all the changes, this is the one where you can really, like, the downside is what I'll say to this change is so evident, right? Because if you were somebody who loved that particular option, when you've got like the Vermin Hulks, that's a good example, right? They used to be able to take these different options of how you could combine their abilities. Now they just have this one set of things they do. If those were the two you always gave your Hulks, your game changes 0, right?
Yep.
Like, neat, cool. If you never use those and always use 2 others that don't exist anymore, that sucks for you. Now, this is somewhat of a straw man argument because nobody used Vermin Hulks, let's be honest. But anyways, that's a side story. No, plenty of people did. I'm being mean. Somewhere there's a Vermin Hulk player who's watching this. They're like, I love those things. I'm sorry, Steve. All right, there you go.
They could use them. They just have to use them in a different way now. I saw them, Gnome Runner, my Vermin Swarm opponent. He played them once, and it was in a fun list that he put together. That he was like, the only reason I took these were to try them. And so I don't.
Can I ask what options were killed in the Vermin Hulks?
Yeah. So now they oh geez, boy, you're gonna put me on the spot. Now they automatically have
digging and rattling guns.
No, not the big ones. Not the fiends. The little ones, the rat ogres.
Yeah. Okay.
Not the thunder hulks, the vermin hulks, or whatever. They used to be able to take like frenzy and hatred and stuff like that, and now they automatically have
immune to psychology, swift stride, and thunderous charge. They lost augmentations.
Again, this is all ability oriented. None of this is modeling.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Thank you, LT. I couldn't for the life of me remember which was which. I've been trying to keep too much in my head with all this, but yes,
it's a lot to take in. No, I totally get it.
Yeah. Okay. So, and yet again, as I said, it's there's the downside. It's there. It's plain as day, and to deny it is foolish, right? Like, yep, there's downside here. My argument would be, in the long term, this is better for the health of the game because units end up having a more defined role. People understand what they're capable of. They still retain some options. What's that?
Yeah, like the answer is then you just create more new units to fill those other roles.
Yeah,
rather than letting one thing be a toolbox.
Right, and in the long term, that can happen, and you can create different specialized units. That's certainly like in the long term of the health of this game, as it continues on, as I certainly expect it to. Yeah, there's going to be new units eventually, right? Like, of course, like somewhere down the road, that will happen. There'll be new armies, there'll be new units, there'll be new stuff. Of course, it's not like this is they're never gonna like gold print it and be like, this is it forever. We're not etching anything into stone tablets, But I think it is one where it's like it could suck for you. But
I get it that especially if you really like that particular aspect in your particular unit and it's gone, I get that. I do get that. I do understand that would hurt, that would suck, and you could be bitter about that. And like I said before about the other things, state your case on the forums. Tell the rules team this, that, or the other thing. Maybe it won't get changed back, but maybe they'll give you clarification on why it happened. While you might not be happy about it, at least you will have an understanding about why it happened, and then maybe use that understanding to push different things in the book later on, so that maybe a unit similar to what you had might one day be incorporated, or maybe an option that is similar, or the exact option will come back. Who knows? But you don't
or there
know,
could be some middle ground that the unit also happens to get this thing, but maybe changes its points value a little because it was critical that I think this option was important because it actually filled this particular role in the army, and that's why it became a critical component. Without it, it's just not going to see play. So maybe the right answer is let's bake this in, up the points accordingly, and now it can fill that role and it will actually see play. So even though it got slightly more expensive, it actually hits the table.
Exactly.
A cheaper unit that never gets played isn't very useful, right? So
no, not at all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Do any of us have any other thoughts on the removal of options?
No. Like, I'm always one, and Vince knows this, I'm mixed on this in this type of discussion because I like options. But that's the like from a psychographic profile, like I'm a Johnny Spike. And
yes, you're addicted to options with that profile.
Yeah, like the Johnny Spike wants options to min-max and wants options to outthink opponents.
Right.
And if you don't have options, that limits your options. I mean, like, so it's just weird. It's less levers to pull, and that's intentional. But it benefits certain types of players and not others. Like the Timmies just want to smash things. They don't like, that's not like pulling a bunch of levers is not something that is giving them any like utils of enjoyment.
And to be clear, just to put the pin on it again, it's not like we're saying suddenly units are like, chunk.
Yeah, simplified. Yeah.
There's a reduction, not an elimination.
But it is moving along that spectrum.
Sure.
Between those different playstyle.
Yeah, no disagreement. It is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm with that. All right. Path of Magic changes. So obviously the Path of Magic went from 20 and a big number of spells and a more probably what I would call toolbox setup where the paths were very, how do I say this? A lot of the paths resembled each other in a large way because they most of them had similar capabilities. There's like a magic missile that does roughly this, and there's a larger damage spell that does roughly this, and there's a combat buffing or hexing that does roughly this, and so on and so forth, right? And when you really looked across the paths, a lot of them did have
a lot of redundancies. Yes,
a lot of redundancy. Yeah. So you had a huge number of spells. I think when Blonde Bear totaled it, I think he said it was 180 plus, right, across all of them.
Over 180, yes.
Yeah. And so now it's been cut to 10 paths, and
and
the individual paths have a much more defined sort of theme role. I don't know. Like pick the word.
The runics magic and the totemic magic, I believe, or I'm pretty sure that's right. And that's, I think, beast herds and dwarves have that access. So I guess there's 10 main paths of magic, and then there's 2 specialized for those particular armies because of the way they function. So,
all right. So here you go, right out of the gate. Thoughts, LT? I'm gonna kick this one to you first. Go.
Well, personally, this is something, reducing the amount of magic lores that were out there was something I've been pushing for since 7th edition. I don't like the redundancy. I understand that people like it brings flavor, especially the unique army-specific magic lores, yada, yada, yada. It gives me more options. No, it didn't. Like you said earlier, it gave you the illusion of options. You were taking the same thing wrapped in a different candy wrapper. That's all it was. You were doing the exact same stuff. Maybe the lore attribute was different, but other than that,
Can I make a quick analogy?
Absolutely.
I think in a lot of cases it was left Twix, right Twix, right? Like we've all seen those commercials where it's like, oh, we roll caramel over or whatever, and it's like
we cascade it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not saying all of them were like that, but there were certainly plenty of examples of left Twix, right Twix. Continue.
And so this cutting the magic paths in half and redoing them. I mean, there's heavy influences from a lot of the old spells. Wrath of Gods and Comet are identical. Identical. And so it's a lot of the real cool spells and stuff like that are still in there. The augments, the hexes, a lot of that stuff is still in there, but it's specific now. It's not a Swiss Army knife anymore, if you will. Now it's more of a specific. Okay, I have Caster X in my army, and his role is to do this: take care of chaff, whittle down big, heavy, high armor save guys, whittle down low toughness, low armor save guys, deal with horde bricks for me, things like that nature. And you have to decide what you want to take, or why you're bringing a wizard in your army, as opposed to I'm just going to bring 1, 2, 3 in there because, well, they all do basically the same thing. Ha ha ha. And there was no intelligent design there. It was just throwing a water balloon at a fire, going, look at me, I'm being productive, and it's not there. So in my personal opinion and experience now with the new paths of magic, so much better. And the shamanism, I'm sorry to get into specifics, but the shamanism path is my absolute favorite because it's broke as hell.
Have you been summoning the breath weapon beast?
Oh my god! There's no reason for an ogre player that is going to take a shaman, that's going to use shamanism, to ever take a kin eater again. Oh, but your opponent could dispel it. Let him. That's awesome. Because as far as I'm concerned, that kin eater just helped. The totemic monster just helped for free. And if I get him on the table, he's gonna go over by his vulnerable units, so he has to pay attention to him, or my free unit that just showed up on the table is going to take out all of his stuff. And then when he pops up, he gets to spray his 2d6 strength 3 weapon all over your war machine. Oh god, they're getting rid of that in version 1.3. I'm so upset about it already. Oh my god, the spell that lets me take it so that you have -1 to hit and all terrain is DT2. Oh my god, thank you for whoever made that, you corrupt psychopath. I love shamanism so much. I've got swarming insects, 5d6 strength 1 attacks. It's Christmas in October. I'm so happy. Keep butchery. Keep it. I don't even want it anymore. I've got shamanism. I'll kick your ass. Skaz has survived. Oh my god, I love it. And but a lot of the other spells, to get a little bit more serious, the paths and stuff like that my opponents have used against me, that I've used against my opponents and stuff like that. Huge difference. Huge difference. Magic is terrifying for the right reasons now. Not only casting it, but having it cast or having it dispelled, hoping that certain things get dispelled. There's a lot more tangible worry and threat in the atmosphere when you're in your magic phase, because number one, the new miscast chart is cumulative for one, and for two,
we'll get there.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm jumping again.
You
I'm
keep
excited.
wanting to go to this, and
I'm
I'm
so
saving
excited.
it for last purpose.
I apologize, but it's just the concern, what you're casting and everything like that happens in the game. But before you even get into the game, you're like, I'm taking Wizard X. Wizard X has to shore up this weakness in my army, which is Y. And so I need to take this specific path Z in order to ensure that I have a well-rounded all-comers list. Otherwise, I'm going to get steamrollered by this particular type of army. And while some people believe they've lost flavor to their army because they no longer have their army-specific spell list and stuff like that, I see your point, but it was hollow flavor. It's like eating sugar cubes because you want a snack. It's not really as fulfilling as you think it is, because you were doing the same things you can do now. You're you're going to do it better. I don't know how else to put it. I'm sorry it's not wrapped into the way you want it to be wrapped. It doesn't say, for example, Lore of the Green Gods or Path of Change anymore. Now it might have, occultism or witchcraft instead, which other armies can take. So it's not your personal, individual, list, but the tools at your disposal now, the functionality of your wizard is so much better that, I mean, the flavor is there. It's just it's actual flavor. It's actual decision. It's actual. I don't know how to put it. Actual meaning now in your list and overall and stuff like that. That if you could just quit worrying about how it's packaged and give it to you, you'll see that your new tools and your new abilities for your wizard far exceeded anything you had in the past. And if it just comes down to a fluff thing or a lore thing, read a book. I don't know what to tell you.
That is exactly what my critique is. Because, and it's ironic coming from the Johnny Spike, but it caters to a certain mentality of what this game is. From a development standpoint, I think it is the way that what needs to happen for a tournament game. If you're wanting to engender a tournament scene, this is what you need to do in order to be able to finely tune in and to refine, to limit options, and to give to the spell lores a particular focus and balance. But if I am playing a demon like Decay player, for example, I was like, okay, what magic is appropriate for my thing? And I'm like, well, I guess occultism. And I have a 1 in 3 chance in this one lore to maybe get something Decay related. And then everything else is just like Raising the Dead or other stuff where some of it I could see, but others like Pentagram something. And like, I just like it just like, I thought about like the Lust demon player. I don't know what lore would speak to the type of magic that you're casting. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, because like, or even better, the Changer, like the Tzeentch equivalent, they're casting holy stuff now.
Yeah.
So they're in the thaumaturgy list.
Yeah.
And so they're doing like divine blessings and stuff like that. And there's no actual like transmutation changing stuff in the list.
Yeah. So here's my thoughts on it. And the reduction, the concept of the reduction is dead on. Yep. That was a massive barrier of entry to anybody playing. Yep. It was a massive barrier of entry to experienced players because it's became almost impossible for me to know every spell and what it did. And now I don't have to necessarily know every spell. Instead, I can know what lore you're using, and I can know the general concept and what that lore is capable of. If you're using pyromancy, I can have a general gist of pyromancy and for the most part be right and know what pyromancy is capable of. These are all good things.
Yep.
Okay. The design of the lores being more thematically inclusive of themselves is a more bottom-up design, right? Like you look at a term, it's a more top-down design. When I look at a term like pyromancy, what flows from that? It's what's in the pyromancy thing. So it's good top-down design. I like that. The downside to this design choice, to me, is that yes, you lose the what's in a rose, right? Like what's in a name? Any rose by any name would smell just as sweet, right? That's what you're pointing at there, right, Tom?
Yeah.
On one hand, part of this is just the general fluff of it. The fact that I like when I look at this particular Skaven guy, I've got this weird mix of like 3 spells, from like thaumaturgy or whatever else, right? And
like holy blessings. Like if you're in thaumaturgy, you're doing like divine blessings stuff.
Well, he has like set spells, but
fair, but let me throw this in there. I see what you're saying about thaumaturgy and stuff like that with the demon players playing it, but I'm looking at the spells right now, and Hand of Heaven. I know Hand of Heaven. Everybody thinks of the big pearly gates and the clouds and everything like that, but a heaven to a demon of change, wrath, well, not wrath, but change or lust or pestilence or something like that, their heaven's going to be different. So, I mean, honestly, it just requires a little bit of imagination, which is what this game is all about, really.
Well,
for
it's
any of
scrubbing
those
serial
to
numbers.
fit. I mean, any of these fit. None of them are Suna's wrath or the big orc, spit or anything like that. They're like Smite the Unbeliever. Yeah, I could totally see a change going. You don't believe in the Lord of Change? Smite. Speaking in tongues, trial of faith, cleansing fire, wrath of God. Who's God?
Yeah.
Which God? I see what you're saying, but the flavor's still there. You just got to kind of fill in the blanks yourself a little bit.
Well, I want to jump on this real fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Wrath of God is 2 colorless and 2 white, and it's a white card, and it destroys all creatures. Okay,
you are a heathen.
and the black version of that card was called Damnation, and there's a reason that those 2 cards had same effect, same cost, but there's a reason they had 2 different names. Because when I hear the wrath of God will be laid upon you, the fact is, I'm going to bring preconceived notions to that.
Yep.
And I will unpack a conception. Like, I don't disagree that, like, you're right. Maybe this demon thinks like that. But guess what? I don't. I'm the person playing it. And when I hear God laying his wrath upon me, I think of Jules' speech from Pulp Fiction. And he wasn't referencing the Lord of Change. Okay? Because
he wasn't a greater demon of change, but the greater demon of change was definitely referencing the god of change. So,
but the problem, so I think there is something
numbers. There. The problem is it's scrubbing serial numbers. So what it's saying is it's what. So for some people, this lore fits. For everybody else, you need to pretend that this says something different.
Okay,
use the same mechanics. It says something different for you.
Right now, I'm going to push back.
Go ahead.
Let me push back in both directions real quick.
Okay.
This is this is very interesting to me. Here's one, Tom. I'll push back on Tom first. Okay.
Okay.
We played D&D for years. We still play D&D, right?
Yep.
Same here.
Awesome. Okay, great. When you meet an orcish spellcaster in D&D, did they use a completely different type of magic? No. They use the same spells that you have access to. They might have a different domain if they're a sort of clerical shaman-y type orc or something like that. But if you meet some orcish wizard, they're going to be tossing around the same magic missiles and sleep spells that you do. Maybe they have a bigger focus into necromancy or something like that. Maybe they look different when they go pop a Bagumbo Juju and cast their spell. But the reality is they're using the same spell book.
No, stop.
You always have.
There's a problem with your analogy, and here's what it is.
I already know what it is, but go ahead.
Yes, and in this system, the system that we're talking about, there are 60-some odd spells.
That's not you're putting your finger on the wrong problem. Okay, it doesn't matter how many spells there are. You need to take.
Well, no, that you can customize. Like you can customize.
It's not about
that orc wizard.
It's about the category and how much those categories fit across the broader thematic concepts. Right. There could yes, there's probably some critical mass, but what you're putting your finger on there is that the spells and the categories they fall into are broad enough that when I meet the orc wizard, I can find the right category, and then looking in that category of stuff, I can find the right stuff underneath it to make that orc wizard feel like an orc wizard, right? Because he might have a magic missile or a hold, but he might also have enough necromancy stuff to make it feel like he's a weird juju caster, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
but that's a volume thing.
I don't think it's a volume thing. I think it's a category thing. Okay. My point is, I think the major point I would push at right now is that the categories that they've chosen, the 10 broad paths, are aligned to the wrong thematic, or aren't perfectly aligned to the right thematic elements. Okay. When I look across the scope of D&D and the thematic elements that they captured with say the schools of magic or the domains, right?
Yep.
You manage to get whether there's 10,000 spells under that or 100, right? It's broad enough. Yes, there is some critical number here, but it's not
Sure.
I'm saying there is a number, but it's not like the number is what's doing it. Okay. You could have 1,000 spells if they were all fucking abjuration spells in D&D. You would not solve the problem.
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. The problem here is that like I don't have the right categories, I think, yet where they landed to properly feel like I'm hitting exactly the right thematic notes across all the armies. And so we have some misalignments. So on one hand, yes, we can relabel these serial numbers and that's cool. And we should have overlap because the orc using the magic missile and the good guy using the magic missile is a magic missile. And I'm okay with the only difference being the way it looks or whatever, right? But at the same time, there's also a different set of like darker magic that, or whatever that the orc or the greater demon or the whatever should be able to call to regularly. And maybe part of this is in the way spells are chosen, right? In that maybe certain casters should have easier access or automatic access to certain types of spells, like your decay example. Maybe there's certain decay items on the list that certain decay people just get, right? Or can automatically
or
default
like
to
sub out
to.
spells. Yeah, like
Yeah.
like sub stuff out. But then that adds a degree of complexity. And what you would do is you don't do an entire lore, you do 1 or 2 spells.
Right. Yeah. And so there's different ways we could attack this. I think this is one of those things where the general concept and where they've gone with this is really good overall for the long-term health, but we're not at perfection yet because we've lost some stuff. We've thrown out we haven't thrown out the baby with the bathwater, but we've got the baby kind of over the edge of the tub, right? And we need to push the baby back in a little bit. Like that is to say, we might have gotten rid of a little too much here, and we could bring it back without necessarily undoing the good changes that here, which is reducing the path, reducing the number, making it easier
that
for new
pushes into
players.
the actual army books. Like whatever the needs are of that particular army.
Yeah, to some degree, there's probably a little bit of path change. To some degree, there's probably a little bit of change in the army book. Like this feels like a multifaceted change. This really is a development thing in my mind. Last thing I'll say is I do not like evocation. Hate it, hate it, hate it. I hate that name is evocation. I'm sorry. I've been playing D&D for 26, 27 years now. And evocation is the name of a thing that makes things go boom. Not what that's how it's being used here as sort of a dark, almost pseudo necromantic thing. I don't like that name. I don't know if that's a language thing. I don't even care if evocation has a different meaning. Evocation means making things go boom. That's what it is. Evokers go boom. Sorry, my personal bias aside. All right, now I'll shut the hell up after this mega rant. I had a lot on this one.
That's not the first time I've heard the evocation argument. Not in audio form, in words, but I have heard that before, and I don't necessarily disagree or agree with it. Honestly, I guess I just don't care. Not just about the name, just about like the fluff aspect of the spells and stuff like that. I was more worried personally about the functionality. I was more worried about spell 1, you do D6 strength 4 hits. Spell 2, you do +1 strength. Spell 3, you do +1 initiative. Spell 4, you do this, that, just real basic stupid shit.
Oh yeah.
And that didn't happen. It's very, in my opinion anyway, thought out. I like the pass. I like that they are specific toolkits. Okay, this one lets me change a tire. This one lets me make toast. This one lets me, give a vaccination. I like that, as opposed to, here's my Swiss Army knife. What did you take? I decided to try out, because that's what was happening in 1.1. I went through I took butchery for a while, got bored of it. I'm going to take fire for a while, got bored of it. Now I've got heavens. Yay! I liked comet and the attribute. The rest of the spells couldn't give a crap about. Now I really need to think about this path, this path, this path. What role do I want my caster to have now? And it's improved my game. Are you ready for it? Tremendously.
Nice. Well, yeah, and that's a really good point that I don't want to leave behind. I like the way they changed and varied the mechanics to reinforce the feeling of a lot of the lores. Like that is to say, the way maybe the trait or the attribute or the special rules of it, can it be just blown up? The way like pyromancy, you can sort of channel more fire, whereas the cosmos or chaos, that difference, right? I thought that was neat. It made my brain hurt. We need to clean up and simplify the way that little, holy God in heaven. Like A+ on concept, I'm giving you a strong C on execution. That I had to read that like 5 times to make my brain fit around what was going on there.
A couple of us got together and looked at it and actually like wrote it out and figured out how it was supposed to work. And it's actually a good lore, but yeah, they need to really clean that up. Just the verbiage. It's like, okay, then you do this, then you do that, then you put it in, you shake it all about, you go over here, and you owe the other guy $5.
What? Yeah, exactly.
But did I hit?
Like, it's such a good idea. It goes back to Tom. As soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh my god!" It's kind of that old Archmage mechanic from War, where you could like lean in this one direction, this other. Super cool, awesome idea. Implement it better. You didn't nail that. Good road. You're going down the right place. We just took a wrong exit somewhere. Let's get back on the highway and get to the destination. But yeah, and by the way, when I was saying like I don't think the lores are perfectly aligned, I think there are many good ones that are well aligned. I think there's just like, I think honestly, it's probably a 1 or 2 swap thing where there's like a couple that need some better alignment to better thematic concepts to more accurately kind of touch the right armies. Right. And that, and then you clean up a little bit with army books and you're good. Overall, I think this was largely good. There is obvious downside, but I think, again, this is one of those where like long term, this is a right choice. And once we get the sort of development issues out of the way, I think this one will be a real winner that people will look very favorably upon, because they'll read it and go, sweet, pyromancy, that's about fire. What does it do? Oh, sweet, it makes fire. I get this one. There's a grok ability concept here, right? Like, it really is. Like, grok ability matters.
You want that. Yeah.
Like, and this is strong for that. Okay. All right, final one. Oh, good Lord. This is going to be the show to end all shows.
Oh, you had to end this one, huh?
Yes. Let's talk about the change to overwhelming power, shall we? Okay. So, LT, would you like to take this one?
Well, I suppose. Okay. So, the whole magic like how you do magic flux and channel and everything like that is the same. You roll 2d6 and then your opponent gets the highest of 2 dice, you get the combo, you channel as usual. All that is the same. None of that has changed. Bound spells still pretty much work the same way. However,
It's just a big however.
Woo! Okay, let me caveat this by saying I love this. This is something I was advocating for, and I'm thrilled that it's here. A more punishing miscast table, because I'm going to do it. I'm going to use the Spider-Man quote. With great power comes great responsibility. And nobody has more of that on the table than a wizard that is literally warping reality using shit he doesn't understand. I don't care what fluff you're talking about. He doesn't understand what the hell he's doing. He's got a basic idea, but it's a mortal messing with immortal stuff. Shouldn't be done. And so when you roll, as always, when you roll boxcars during in any of your dice rolls to cast a spell, now when you're dispelling to cast, you suffer overwhelming power. What you do is you take another d6 out of your power pool if you have one. If you don't, you skip this step. But if you roll, let's say 4 dice, and you roll 2 6s, and you have another power die in your power pool, you roll that other one, and you add that to your total. That's your overall score. If that spell goes off, you do just like before, and you do all the positive effects. The spell effects go off, any attribute or trait goes off, and then you have to roll a d3. For the miscast chart, you roll a d3, add 1 to the roll, and then multiply it by however many dice you use to cast the spell, not including the one you got for overwhelming power. So, for example, in the example you roll 4 dice, let's say you roll a d3, you roll a 2, plus 1 is 3, times 4 is a 12. Well, there's 4 different sections on the miscast table now, which at first you're like, oh, wow, there's only 4 things? Hold on a second. Buckle up. It's about to get ugly. Because all 4 of the miscast results are cumulative now. So if you roll high enough, you get multiple bad things happening to you, and none of these you're going to walk away from happy, okay? So when casting spells, I highly recommend you think before you just grab up 5 dice and toss them, because if you do roll overwhelming power to get some BS spell off and end up rolling a 20 or higher on the miscast roll, you have destroyed a part of your army. So we're going to start off with the simple one, with Witch Fire, which is what you're always going to get when you misfire. It from 1 to 9 on the miscast roll, you get Witch's Fire. So you're always going to suffer this effect, and that is you suffer a number of hits equal to the miscast roll. So if your miscast roll was like an 8, your unit or your caster and the unit he's in will take up to 8 wounds. Now, the amount of wounds that you suffer can never exceed the amount of wounds in the unit, which I think is important, so that if you roll 9 and you only have your character's out on his own with only 3 wounds, you're going to take 3 hits. And the strength of it is the magic dice used. So if you used 4 dice to cast the spell, it's going to be strength 4 with magical attack, special rule, and armor piercing 1. So that's just...
Real quick. Let me
go for it.
pin on that.
Go for it.
Number of hits equal to the number of wounds in the unit, right? So if you've got 6... Can't exceed,
right.
Yeah. It's the casting level, though, Vince.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I want to put a fine point on this can't exceed the wounds. Meaning, if you had a unit of 6 regular duders, right, who are assumingly 1 wound duders, and a 3 wound wizard, and that's your unit, then the maximum that could take is 9, right? So in the case where you rolled 9, that's if you rolled 12, 3 just don't get counted. Okay. I just want to, it's the wounds, not the models. It's whatever. So just so everybody's clear what's going on. Okay, please continue.
So at 10 plus, you hit the next level of miscast, and it starts getting gnarly. Okay, like right out the box. You thought Witchfire, oh my god, I'm going to take that many wounds? Sit down. We're just getting started. So at 10, you pass the threshold into amnesia. So now you suffer this amnesia and Witchfire. So you have to roll a d6, and on a 4-up, so 50-50 chance, the wizard cannot cast the miscast spell this game anymore. So you lose that spell completely. No ifs, no ands, no buts. If you roll a 4, 5, or 6, that spell is gone out of your repertoire for the rest of the game. And then you do Witchfire. So that's that's crazy. That's the 10 to 12 in the old chart. Now it's just, did you roll a 10 up? Bad news. You might have just forgot that spell, 50-50. And then you're going to destroy your unit. I love it. But let's say you're a maverick wizard. You're a fly by the seat of your pants. I ain't scared of no, consequences type of guy. And you get past the 15 plus threshold, you get into catastrophic detonation. So now you got to roll another d6, and on a 4-up, so 50-50 once again, the wizard loses a number of wounds. I'm going to say that again. The wizard loses a number of wounds equal to half its starting number of wounds, rounding fractions up. No saves of any kind allowed. So you're at 15 up. You go, oh crap, my wizard has a starting amount of, he's fully healthy. So he's got 3, we'll say you're a normal little thinling, not a big bad OS ogre like I am. So you got 3 wounds. You're going to take 2 wounds flat out. Just 2 wounds. Thanks for playing, because there's no saves of any, no roll, just on a 4-up. Here's 2 wounds because your skull just fractured. Then you do amnesia, then you do Witchfire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which with your 3 wound people could result in the death of that caster off of that one miscast, right?
No, because it's the starting amount. It's your starting number of wounds. So if you have a wound already and then you cast it, you'll take 1 wound. However, if you've only got 1 wound left,
but Vince is saying because you take a bunch of hits too.
Yeah, like my point is.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
If you start with 3 wounds, you lose half your wounds rounding up. There's 2, and then if the Witchfire hit wounds on the caster, like that would now count. He only has 1 wound left. If that 1 hit wounds, then he drops dead.
Now with the Witchfire, they would still get if somehow they had an armor save that was higher than a 6-up or a ward or a regen, they'd get that. But you do not get magic resistance to these wounds. Now the final one, if you I think you have to roll like 5 dice or just really piss off the dice gods on a 4 roll.
It's like the only way you hit this number is 5 dicing a spell and then rolling a 3 on the D3 plus 1.
So it's hard to do, but if you're that kind of guy or gal and you like to just 5 dice this fireball, kiss my ass, opponent, well, you might reach the pinnacle of the miscast chart, which is Breach in the Veil. You have literally torn open the gates of hell. So, once again, you roll a d6. On a 4, 5, or 6, your wizard's dead. Pick him up, throw him back in your box, because he ain't coming back. He is removed from the game as a casualty. No saves of any kind allowed. So then you get to skip catastrophic detonation if you roll a 4, 5, or 6. If not, then you got to roll that. Then if you killed your wizard, you can ignore amnesia. If not, you may lose a spell, and then you go over to Witchfire, which you will blow up because you are literally taking possibly 20 or more hits in the unit, depending on where your wizard is currently situated and or before he killed himself because he did not study hard enough.
Yeah, and to make this very real for people, I think your chance of getting double 6s on 5 dice is about 16%. That sound right to you, Tom?
Yeah.
And so that would mean that every time you toss 5 dice at a spell, you have a 5% chance of detonating your wizard off the... Well, sorry. You have a 2.5% chance of detonating your wizard off the table with that 20 plus effect, right?
Challenge accepted.
Because a third of the time you're going to roll, like if it's 16%-ish base, you're going to roll a 3 on the D3 plus 1 a third of the time. It's fairly obvious, right? So that knocks us down to 5-ish%, and then half of that time you get the 4 plus to detonate yourself off the table. So it's about 2.5% of the time is how often you detonate him off. Now, what I'll say is, as you just pointed out, even if you don't detonate him off, he might not survive the rest of the chart going down.
Yeah, his life expectancy is significantly shortened, but if you do need that critical spell, I mean, again, I love this so much because before, screw it, I'm going to throw 5 dice, and the odds of me rolling a 2 to 4 are pretty slim unless you're Skaz, in which case it's guaranteed. But if you're just rolling as a normal person and you roll 5 dice at a spell just to get it off, chances are you're going to be all right. Your unit might take a little bit of damage in the old version of the rules, the old miscast chart. And, you know, it wasn't a big deal. And it was frustrating to a lot of people, especially when they had low magic defense and stuff like that. Now, though, you could still do that, but the consequences, if you get overwhelming power, are devastating, possibly game-changing or game-ending. So you really have to factor all that in. You have to be intelligent in your magic phase as opposed to just grab up 5 dice, throw it, and let the dice gods be damned. So
here's my response. My thought on this one is all second order consequences. Okay.
Yep.
I've preached many times that game design is the study of incentives. That's why I believe if you want to be a good game designer, you should study behavioral economics. But this is all incentives. So let me tell you how I read the incentives on this. I would never throw 4 or 5 dice at a spell. Like, and I don't. Like, because the consequences, like by never rolling 4 or 5 dice, I shut myself off from the top 2 results on the table. Okay. If that means there's a spell I can't cast, then the only way I would, let me say now, I shouldn't say never. I will only throw 4 or 5 dice at a spell if literally getting, if the opposite choice is I lose the game.
Yep.
Okay. So the only way I ever throw 4 dice is either this spell goes off or I lose the game anyways. Okay, if that's the decision I'm up against, then I'd throw the dice. But in every other case, I would just never 4 or 5 dice a spell. Like, this chart is so catastrophic.
Yep.
As to make the incentive structure for me who's a risk-averse player, right? Like, I think of like an old Furion style player. You're never throwing more than 2 or 3 dice at a spell. Because the risk outweighs the reward. It's so catastrophically big that like I can survive an average of like 4 or 6 or whatever strength 2 hits on my unit, right? Even with armor piercing. That's fine. If that happens, big deal. But like to me, for any normal buff or magic missile or whatever I'm normally casting, if it's not like this wins the game if this goes off, or this prevents me losing the game if this goes off. And by the way, this wins the game, it better be like a sure thing that it wins the game if it happens, right? I don't ever see myself using 4 or 5 dice. Like, I love the catastrophic craziness, but even under the old rules, LT, I would watch your games and your battle reports, and the number of times your opponents would throw big dice to spell, I would just sit there and be like, what are you doing? What?
Yeah.
Why would you throw
You're
that those
risking
dice?
throwing the game. And what?
Yeah,
you're
like
doing.
stop touching that many magic dice. Put them down.
Yep.
You're addicted to danger for no reason. You didn't need that, right?
Yeah.
So the second order consequence. So let me trace this line out, okay? And this is all when you get into mapping these consequences. This is all theory. I'm totally in the world of theory, Hammer, and this might not be how things play out. But like this takes time and testing to see whether or not this proves out. But to me, I would rather only use 2 or 3 dice in the vast majority of cases. Pareto principle applying, right? So I'm going to tend to use favor weaker spells and favor less dice. Now, I'll say on the whole, most of the casting values came down, right?
Yes. Oh, yep. I was just about to say that, but you nailed it. Yep.
Yeah.
Not all.
So,
I mean, there's still some higher ones up there. I think I see there's a bunch of 10s. I see some I see a 13 and 11.
Yeah. And
but,
there's some the lores that have like the jump ups, like pyromancy.
Yep.
Just those aren't happening. That, like, never. I'm never using those. Like those might, like, I could just redact those from my version of pyromancy because I'm never.
But that will incentivize or shape how you choose your lores then.
Exactly. Well said, Tom. I was just about to say that. He's right. Because the way your list, the way you play, the way your list is designed and everything like that, you have to think about that now, because you can't just say, well, I've got pyromancy to take care of chaff and big units. Now you're like, well, I'm not using any more than 3 dice to cast because it's not worth it. So now you got to have more intelligent list design. Now you got to think harder about how you're going to do your not only your magic phase, but your list design. And that's huge. That's good. Forcing people to make intelligent decisions is never a bad thing.
Maybe. Let me see if I can chart out a way where it's bad for you.
Lead on.
All right. Let's go down this rabbit hole farther. So if I'm only using 2 or 3 dice for spells, and I'm tending to fail spells more or get spells dispelled and not getting off bigger effects, right? But I'm also I'm then avoiding the negative consequences because, again, I'm putting myself in the mind of a very risk averse player, which, by the way, when you play in tournaments, risk aversion is the way you win tournaments, right? Like, in general, you're risk averse until the moment where you risk everything to win everything. And at one moment, being able to, like, a key tournament skill is knowing exactly the right moment to risk and having that then break your way, luckily, like, whatever.
That's why I lose tournaments pretty regular.
Like, great tournaments players know exactly when to risk, right? And when not to.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm going to tend to be risk averse, which means I'm going to tend to cast less powerful magic. And what that means is that overall the game becomes less magical. And I mean that in just like the sense of the word, in all senses of the word. Magic does less. I use it for less potent effects. I do less with it. The game itself feels less magical because I do less things that are magically compelling and interesting.
Well, the game's telling you not to do magic.
Right. Like, don't be that. Like, again, I'm walking down the experience path of a risk-averse player, right? This is assuming a certain profile and a certain way that somebody might approach the game. Now, if you've got Lord Tremendous's group who have proven, LT and his crew have proven that they are willing to throw caution to the wind, homie. Like, they are all in. Like, their game, conversely, is going to feel insanely magical because they will be popping these massive detonations off and these things will be happening and big magic
heads will be exploding.
Will be happening. So you'll get an inverse barbell of experiences. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm tracing out what I see as potential consequences of this. Okay, where like half the people are like, magic is crazy. It does too much stuff. It's all over the place. I blew up half my army and then I blew up half their army, right? And then the other half of the people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Magic never does anything in my games, right? And that's a legitimate way this could play out in experiences. And the two groups would just talk past each other because the way that
they're both right.
And they're both right because the way magic plays out in their games is just completely different.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
In my experience, I mean, you're right. I agree with you on the concept. When I'm rolling dice now, when I'm rolling spells, I don't do over 3 unless I really either just want the spell to go off or I really need the spell to go off. And I've thrown 4. and I've miscast on 4 once now, and I got the amnesia effect, and I lost the damn spell, and I blew up a bunch of the spazzes, but the spell effect was worth it because it forced a unit of dwarves, it gave them frenzy, which made them hit my chaff unit. They forced the overrun, gave me a very beneficial counter charge with multiple units, and basically helped me solidify my win in the game. So you're right, the risk reward is there, but that's just it. The risk reward is there now, as opposed to before. There was no real risk. I mean, there was some, but for the most part, you were going to get past it unscathed without losing any points. Has it gone too far? You're right. I don't know. I personally don't think so, but I'm 3 games into the version 1.2. The hell do I know? Did it go from one extreme to another? I don't know. But what I do know is that I believe it's going in the right direction. And if it has gone too far, playtesting will show that, and you can always dial it back. So while I don't think we're going to see as 5 dicing as often as we did before, which is good, I do believe we're going to see more intelligent magic phases. I haven't seen magic lessened in my games. Keep in mind, only 3. So, but I have seen it a lot more conservative than it was before, which I don't think is a bad thing. I haven't played a really magic heavy army or opponent yet. I have 1 caster, it's Skaz, and he's got 4 spells and shamanism, and God, they're fun. But I'm 3 dicing them, and I'm miscasting about as often as I always do. So.
Yeah, I saved this one for last intentionally because I have no read on this one. By that, what I mean is, like, I don't know what to say about this. This is going to take time in playtesting. This is a big, big difference in the way this entire mechanic is working, right? And like, it's not anything like the previous mechanic, other than except for the fact it relies on rolling multiple 6s.
And it never was in between editions of.
Yeah, this has been something that's changed a lot, anyways. Hey, quick question on miscasts and your particular experiences. So, being someone who avidly watches your battle reports, LT, your demon heart thing or whatever, that.
Yes.
Okay, right. That makes Miscast-a-thon 2016 happen, right? You pop that at the beginning of the magic phase, right? Your opponents you're playing are well aware that thing is in effect, right?
Yep. Okay. After it's popped after channeling. So right. Yes.
They know the number of dice. You say, I'm using this thing, and they're like, okay, so they're staring at a pile of dice, and they know the effect that's on.
Yes.
Why have none of your opponents simply responded to you doing that with cool?
I end my phase.
I've had an opponent do that once.
Okay.
And it was a vampire count. It was Big Daddy. He was playing his vampire count. I say it in the battle report. He did. He
I
had
missed this
9.
one time then.
It's okay. Or, I've made a few of them, so it's okay for you to forget. But he had a 9 or 10 dice magic phase, and I had like a 4 or 5 dispel, and he was right on top of Skaz, and I was like, I'm gonna pop the heart, and he looked at me and he goes, what does that do? And I explained it to him, and he goes, magic phase over. He went to a shooting phase, and that was it. But totally worth it. Because at the time, a 25-point magic item ended the phase. So if that is what my opponent would do, because I usually don't pop it when you get under 7 dice. Usually it's got to be 9 to 12 dice and is when I pop it.
Right. Sure.
But if that item, now it's worth 50 points, but if that item ends your 9 to 12 power dice magic phase, even if it's top of turn 1, that is worth every single point. So I would love that. Yeah, I'm right with you. I wish more people would. My magic phase is over. Outstanding. Shooting.
Which is fair. I'm just like, in my head, that's the right response. And that comes from like, I apply like magic theory to this, right? Like when the counter spells are there, you play through them. Like that is to say, like when my choice
draw
is
them out.
Yeah, you draw them out. Like, I drew out your heart, you killed my face, but I suffered no other negative consequences. Again, unless I needed to get the spell to win or avoid losing the game, I am not casting the spell. right? Like, because miscast is almost guaranteed. Sorry, this has just been something that's been up my craw for like 10 battle reports. I'm like, I just want to reach the screen. I'm like, put your dice down. Stop helping him.
Don't do it. It's like a horror show. Don't
No,
do
yeah, I'm
it.
yelling at the screen.
Vince, you've been to my store. You've been in my group. You know how aggressive we are.
I know. I feel like you're playing. Yeah, it's a horror movie. It's just like you're like, he's in there with a knife. Don't go in there. He's gonna get you.
He knows he's in there with a knife. He wants to go see what brand. I'm right there with him. I'm like, Demon Heart popped? Excellent. I've had Gnome Runner. He had 9 dice, and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna pop the heart. He goes, screw your heart. Picks up, this is in version 1.1, picks up 4 dice, rolls 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, you bastard. And the spell went off. So
Sure.
then he takes his other 5 dice and goes, okay, I'm gonna do this spell. And I'm like, excellent. He's gonna roll doubles, he's gonna blow up his caster, 5 dice. This is outstanding. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I am amazed Gnome Runner can sit at the table, given the size of those cojones, man. That's good for him. Like all credit to him. He is I support the way that guy plays. He's got just steel down there. That's what I'm saying. So full marks to you, sir. Full marks to you, Gnome Runner. All right. So yeah, I think this will be an interesting one to see how it goes over time. Because I think this is one that could have a lot of different effects, and it's almost we could sit here in theory around it all day, but this is one of those ones. It's like it's a big change. It's going to need time to see how it plays.
Yep.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, all right, good Lord, we need to bring this show to a close. All right.
Never. Let's go. Part 2. Keep rolling.
No, I need to go to bed. I should be up in 4 hours.
Bed is for the undead, and you've got a pulse, man.
That's a good point. All right, LT. Any final? Let me give this to you. I want to as a content team member, manager, whatever your official title is. You're an important person. That's what's relevant here. Very important person.
Depends who you ask.
Sure. I want to give the final thought to you here on these changes in 1.2. If there's your final thoughts, communication out to the community. Go ahead.
I know change is hard. I know change can suck. I know change is hard to accept, especially when you have a preconceived idea of what this situation should be, what this game should be. Totally valid, totally understand, totally get it. No problem with any of that. However, I believe that being open-minded to the changes and being constructive in the criticism that you have about the changes, as opposed to throwing temper tantrums, is going to be the key on getting all the issues resolved. Nobody on the exec team, nobody on the rule team, nobody that is directly involved in T9A has said that version 1.2 is the best thing to ever happen since sliced bread. It is going to be flawed. It is known flawed. These are course changes. Be part of the solution. You see a problem, you have a disagreement with how things are going, get on the forums and intelligently, maturely, courteously say it. Hey, X isn't working the way it should because Y, and here's an idea of how to fix it. And guaranteed, there's hundreds of examples on the forums already of people already engaging with the execs and the rule team, getting explanations, getting talked to, hey, you know what? You got a point. It's supposed to be this way because of this. And that's the best way in order to do it. Just open communication. Not all the ideas are going to be taken. Not all the ideas are going to be good ones, but not all the bad ideas are going to be bad ones. So get them out there, play test the game, try it out. Game might not play or act, your list might not play or act the way you did before, but that doesn't mean your army is broken. You just might need to try a little something different than you're used to. Doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. You can have valid arguments. Tom has had a lot of valid arguments. Vince has had a lot of valid arguments just during the show. All good ideas. So by all means, well, okay, maybe not Vince. But
Yeah, I mean, really, right off everything I said, frankly, to be honest. Yeah.
But in the end, if you just keep an open mind, try it out. This happens a lot when games change, have a revision, have a new update, especially one as big and coarse as this one. So take a deep breath, take a step back, and then come back forward, give it a few play tests, give it a few tries, bounce around with some choices, and then come back and have real solid criticism or compliments on certain things. If something works great, say it. Let people know, hey, this was awesome. However, this sucks. So, and this is why, and here's how I think it should work. Thoughts, and get it out there. And you know what? Version 1.3 is going to be infinitely better if we all do that.
Totally fair. I think it's really key to remember that everybody who's involved with this project, who is dumping hundreds of hours of their life of their own free volition with no reward other than the enjoyment of the game, like that is to say no monetary, incentive, wants to make the best possible game for the people who love this game. Nobody is trying to make a garbage game, right? Every person involved with this loves this and wants to see it succeed. That doesn't mean that every element that you love is going to necessarily come out, but we are all one community, and it's important to always keep that in mind. Start with all of the areas that we agree on and have consensus and all agree with together, and always keep that in the front of your mind, that there's way more agreement than disagreement. And if you keep that in mind, hopefully then you can more rationally discuss the points of disagreement. There you go. All right. Very good. Tom, closing thought here as we sign off?
Give it a try. Find something that, again, I can't stress this enough. These are new forces. So you're going to have to potentially throw out some of your old ideas of what your force should be able to do. And go try some lists. Just throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. See if maybe you don't discover a new way to play something new that you might not have enjoyed before, but now you do. Absolutely. All right. Yep. There we go. To all of you out there watching, I know this was a super long show, but that's what we deliver when Lord Tremendous comes around. It's a tremendous amount of content. We're packing it in today. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you all to everybody who is giving feedback. Thank you to the team who made everything with 1.2. A lot of solid work, a lot of feedback, and I hope everybody has great games, of course. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday. Don't forget to buy Lord Tremendous's book.